And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first match of the Upsurge Contender League's playoff. My name is Orbital. I'm joined here by Go for Eno, and we are bringing you once again the first round of this 16-team bracket of the UCL playoffs.
Yeah, and it's shaping up to be pretty excited because we're having two sibling teams fight each other in Honeybee Esports versus Honeybee Sports Academy. So that's going to be a little bit confusing here on the caster desk, but we'll have to see once we get into game. How's it going for you?
It's going all right. Again, we do have two sister teams. It is Honeybee Esports versus Honeybee Esports Academy. To start things off, I believe it is Honeybee Esports Academy that are getting side selection first. This is because they were able to place higher in their respective division. They got second place in their division, whereas Honeybee Esports sat at third. So again, the sister team, the sister team will be having side selection first. We will be getting into the champion select, but again, 16 teams on the bracket right now, and it's pretty crazy to see all these guys stack up. Again, the winner of this match, of this best of three, will go on to play the winners between First Blood Marauders and High 7.
Yeah, and I can only assume that whoever wins First Blood or the First Blood Marauders versus High 7 match, they're going to be looking at this game in a lot of detail to try and get some read on their opponents because I mean, doing all the research you can, especially in playoffs, it helps a ton.
Yeah, it really does, and research is always one thing that teams need to keep up on, and because the meta shifts so quickly, right? I think one of the big things that we've recently seen is the crazy start as we do get into pick ban phase here. One of the craziest things to see in the last couple weeks, even just within the last week and a half, is actually Zach top. Is something that a few top laners are opting into. So it's kind of crazy to see some of these picks come out. We are in the draft though, so Olaf and Zoe taken off the table immediately for both these teams.
Yeah, no surprise. Olaf, pretty strong jungler right now, and if I'm not mistaken, for Honeybee Sports Academy, their mid laner is, well, their most played champion is that Zoe, so just taking that comfort pick off the table immediately, no surprise they're coming out from Honeybee Sports.
Yeah, you don't want to, it's kind of crazy to think about, but you really can't even try and hide anything in this meta or in this match because obviously the setup is okay. Here's the issue: we play each other pretty much all the time. We're sister teams. We know each other inside and out. So what can we bring to the table that will surprise them? And we already see the Zoe and Zach taken away, as well as the set. So pretty crazy, or not crazy, standard bans all the way through.
Yep, just taking away mostly comfort picks and some power picks off the table. The Misfortune also banned. Misfortune pretty strong right now, although she has received some light nerfs recently and isn't completely the top dog in terms of favor in the AD carry role anymore, but still up there with the big dogs.
Yeah, I would honestly go as far to say as she is one of the premier ADCs that's currently on the market. Again, you have the whole issue of, kind of a trifecta in the top, and this is kind of what happens with any standard meta is there are certain champions that stay at the top for an elongated period of time. Back in season 7 and 8, it was the trifecta between Ryze, Victor, and Cassiopeia. Now in the bottom lane, it seems it's pretty much Misfortune, Zaya. I think Ashe is in there as well, and these pretty high priority early game champions.
Not to mention, I mean, they do also bring a lot to the table, like you said, but it's going to be the Jarvan locked in here first for Honeybee Academy, most likely going to the jungle, which is kind of interesting because traditionally Kakegurui, he doesn't necessarily play the tankiest of junglers. Granted, Jarvan, he's not necessarily the tankiest of junglers, but we've seen him traditionally lock in much more brawler-esque junglers when it comes to solo queue.
Yeah, and a very solid lock-in as well. Varus on the other side, again, one of these champions that a lot of people like to pick up. Aatrox going down the tier list, Set already banned out, Zach already banned out as well, so Aatrox kind of next on that list.
We'll have to see if that is the lock-in, and it is, so we've confirmed that. So, already shaping up to be a bit of an interesting draft, especially with Varus, because he wasn't part of the trifecta you mentioned earlier, and even though he hasn't exactly been pick or ban in competitive for quite some time, he's always been a little bit of a fringe pick that you could pick thanks to his lethality option just being one of the safest AD carry builds in the game. But not to mention, he does have the build flexibility thanks to the on-hit Varus build as well.
Yeah, and very interesting to see the Akali locked in here, kind of a blind pick, which honestly, in some situations, I don't think Akali is really that big of a blind pick champion. Like, you don't really want to do that because of the range disadvantage. However, it does seem like HoneyBee Esports Academy are willing to take that chance. You know, Akali, even with all the nerfs and changes, recently I think got a very slight buff in 10.6. So, you know, starting to see her rise back into the meta.
And not to mention, it is one of Radiator Spring's most picked champions. He had the Zoe taken away, so he's defaulting to number 2, it looks like.
Yeah, having default down to that Ezreal, okay, play a little bit safe, fine. You know, it's kind of like the this again kind of situation if you look at it. So definitely a nice lock-in though. And the Galio pickup, a champion that we haven't seen too much as of late.
Yeah, he's been out of the meta for quite some time because he came out, he's really busted as a tank, so then they like reworked him a bit, then he's a little too busted as an AP champion, so they like changed him again, and then he's a little too busted as a support, so they changed him again, yada yada yada. So this Galio for HoneyBee Sports can actually be flexed into a lot of places because we have seen top Galio, mid Galio, and support Galio. So any of these lanes he can go to, although my money personally is on mid lane Galio.
Yeah, mid lane Galio always makes the most sense, you know, with that ultimate, able to reach both sides. It's pretty much like a TF ultimate, always fun to use, but the Yuumi and Kennen both taken off the table, so now targeting their respective areas, and it's kind of surprising to see the Kennen ban out since that Aatrox and Galio are on the table, so with the bans, it almost seems like HBE Academy are kind of thinking that that is actually a bottom lane Galio. In the support role, with Aatrox actually going towards that mid lane. So maybe a little different thought process there.
Yeah, it is definitely all up in the air right now since we have seen Aatrox flex to several roles and Galio flex to several roles. So HoneyBee Academy, they are going to be having to like do a little bit of guesswork here, and they are taking off a mid and top lane ban anyways into Kennen and Cassiopeia, like you mentioned. So definitely playing it safe, but also since they are sibling teams, I mean, they could be knowing a lot more about this draft than we do.
Oh, absolutely. And usually when you have this many flex picks, it is a good idea to just ban away other potential champions that can come out. So HBE Academy are putting in the proper work, in my opinion. You know, okay, here's the thing. If we can kind of pigeonhole the enemy team into forcing their flex picks into certain situations, that is what they're hoping to do. So proper bans across the side. Sejuani being picked up for HoneyBee Esports, very solid jungler. However, not exactly able to match the tempo of a J4 in the early game.
Yeah, because, I mean, Sejuani doesn't exactly have the strongest early game dueling, and Jarvan, while he doesn't have the strongest either, he can at least do something, whereas Sejuani can be a little reliant due to the need for the W. And, I mean, granted, picking up the jungler in Sejuani right now here for HoneyBee Esports, that is gonna like still keep the mysteriousness of the draft still up in the air. But yeah, if that is actually a Shaco that's been locked in, that would be very interesting. Because if I'm not mistaken, I Enjoy Losing has actually played some Shaco support.
Yeah, I mean, this would be a crazy draft mix-up here. Kale locked in as well, so a little bit heavy on that AP side, and the Shaco. This is actually a flex on HBE Academy side as well, because in the past we have actually seen J4 support be run as well.
Yeah, I remember having a friend myself actually who would go AP Jarvan support with the old Spell Thieves and Arian as just a ton of poking lane. Granted, it didn't scale all that well, not gonna lie, but it technically was an option. But the last lock in here is actually going to be that Jax for HoneyBee Sports.
Yeah, a little bit scary to try and do all that, considering that there are a lot of ways for HB Academy to disengage. However, HoneyBee Esports have stated and kind of shown in the draft that they are willing to take that risk, especially with the Galio on their back end. You know, hey, anytime anyone jumps in, I have your back. That's kind of the thing that they're saying here. So love the compositions and the versatility and variety coming out from both these teams in game number 1.
Yeah, because, I mean, we're still not 100% sure where everything's going here in the caster dust, so It's going to be an interesting one, and we're going to really, well, have to wait until the actual champion select comes. Then we'll finally know where the hell everything is going.
Yeah, and as we get back into the lobby here, we will be getting everything set and going very shortly for you, as we are making sure that everything is up and running, making sure that competitive integrity is on the board. But one of the things I do want to kind of pressure on that bottom lane, you have such an engage heavy bottom lane from HVE, Varus and Varus and Galio. What do you think of that matchup into either the Ezreal Shaco or the Ezreal Jarvan?
So into Ezreal Shaco, it might actually just be pain for the Galio, because Shaco's support, if he gets priority in the lane, he just, of course, puts down all those boxes, and that really screws over any potential engages you want to go in as the Galio. Not to mention, it is really hard as the Galio anyways to get onto an Ezreal even without all those boxes around, just thanks to the arcane shift and general safety of that Ezreal pick. So HoneyBeesports, it might be a little hard with their engage bot lane just due to the disengage potential. Granted, if it is a Jarvan support actually in the bot lane for HoneyBeesports Academy, now that's a different story, because it's fairly easy to just jump onto the Jarvan and then taunt him up and keep him from getting away with the flag and drag. So it is going to really depend on which one of those two champions goes into the support role in the bot lane here for the Academy team.
Yeah, and with that, you can hear the sound and the horns trumpeting as we do get into the client champion select. We finally get to see where all these flex picks are going. And this is its own game in its own right. As we had the previous draft, now we get to see, the players get to kind of see where the champions go. So number one is second pick phase on the side of HoneyBeesports Academy. We really get to see who's going in that jungle side, and I feel that's going to cause some dissent depending on where Jax and Aatrox want to go. Looks like they have assumed Jax is just straight in the top side.
Yeah, and makes sense though, putting the Jax in the top side, since lane Sejuani, not exactly the most common thing, nor the best of things. It used to be kind of the thing in the mid lane where you went full AP Sejuani and kind of nuke stuff, but that was before her previous rework.
Yeah, just a very simple lock-in here. It looks like the Aatrox will be heading up that mid lane, and it will be the Shaco support. Like you said, I Enjoy Losing has played a lot of that Shaco, and really one of the most infuriating things if you ever met it in solo queue.
Yeah. Although one thing to know about the Shaco support is that in team fights, it doesn't exactly bring the most. It's much more of a laning pick, because Shaco, he doesn't really have the best peel or utility, and it is harder for him to assassinate on a support's budget, especially since typically you start off with the AP item because you want to maximize box damage, although that might be different this season since there is a AD version of the Spell Thieves now.
Mm-hmm. There is also the possibility of, that Galio popping off in that bottom lane. But now as we get, winding down and getting ready to go into the game, I do want to get your last thoughts on that Kayle and Jax on the top lane. Again, Kayle, not a champion we've seen lately. However, great scaling into that mid to late game.
Yeah, although you could say the same about Jax, because he has great scaling into the late game as well. Not to mention, Kayle does have a little bit of a hard time getting the Jax off of her once you do jump onto her with the Leap Strike and the Counter Strike stunning you up. You don't exactly have that immediate dash away if your flash is down to get away from that. So you could just be eating that up for free, assuming that Axel does take the teleport here as a secondary, and then he would have to get a QSS eventually if you really wanted to deal with that Counter Strike consistently. But, of course, the early game advantage, once we hit level 6, might go over to Axel, at least for the first bit of laning phase, because he can just use that ranged harass to just keep on hitting Jupsa Kid. But I'd expect pre-6, Jupsa Kid is probably going to have a bit of a field day in the lane.
All right, well, we'll have to see if that comes true. However, we will be going to a very short intermission as we will, again, for competitive integrity and to make sure nothing is going wrong, we will be going to a short pause, but please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the first game of the Upsurge Contender League playoffs between HoneyBeesports and HoneyBeesports Academy. Don't go anywhere.
Started with a vision of quality, a vision of uniformity. We took the time to create something familiar yet refreshing, something with a bit of change.
Designed to fit any brand's unique vision.
All right. Welcome, I believe, ladies and gentlemen, to the game number 1 between HoneyBee Esports Academy and HoneyBee Esports. On the blue side, we do have HoneyBee Esports Academy, Axel in the top lane, Kakaguri in that jungle, Radiator Springs in the mid lane, and Lin and I Enjoy in that bottom lane.
And then on the opposite side, their sister team, HoneyBeesports, you got Jupsa in the top lane, Jim Cantor in the jungle, Baboom in mid, and then Danny Cutebody and Krista Lenz in the bot lane. And looks like we might see a little bit of spicy action here in the level 1, a little bit of grouping coming out from HoneyBeesports, but it is rather delayed, and if they do go through that tri-bush, they are going to hit that box there that was placed by I Enjoy Losing.
Yep, already a little bit of a snag in there. So has to walk away, and all right, that's that. All right, I hate all you. That's kind of what I think. That's what we just heard from Krista right there.
Yeah, no surprise there, because, I mean, they're walking in, and that box was just about to expire. Had they gone in about a second later into that push, they would have been undetected, but spotted by that and thwarted. Doesn't really cost them anything, though. Just a little bit of knowledge of Jim Cantor's position early on.
Yeah, and actually it looks like the lane swap here. We do have the kill in that mid lane, so Axel and Radiator Springs gonna be doing, I feel, a lot of lane swapping. So usually when this occurs, then you have laners such as two melee bruisers. The laners will attempt to pick the most favorable matchups. So, you know, we were talking about the Jax and Kayle matchup. Instead, now it's gonna be Akali versus Jax in that top side.
Yeah, and Akali does at least have some ways to get away from the Jax all-in, thanks to the Shroud, thanks to the Shuriken backflip. So, gonna have a bit of an easier time, at least getting away and surviving early on. Whereas in the mid lane, if you are the Kayle versus the Aatrox, you do have a little bit of an easier time dealing with them, since it is easier to dodge an Aatrox's all-in compared to a Jax just jumping on you and then pressing the counter-strike button.
Yeah. Kind of the outplay button, hashtag skill. Just, all right, we got this. But again, a little bit of a dance overall from all of these laners. Again, Axel, though, pushed up pretty heavily. That's a level 3 spike, and that's going to be Axel getting jumped on, tries to flash away, but the stun comes down. That's going to be the root, the ignite, and first blood going over to Baboom.
And that is huge in the mid lane, because Aatrox can snowball very well when you give him a bit of a lead. And getting a lead this early on like that is going to be huge, because he's going to get a bit of a CS lead here. Got to force out the teleport from Axel. And Axel won't really be able to push out the lane next time, since there is no flash anymore on that Kayle.
Yeah, remember, until he hits, I believe, level 6, he will not have any range on him. So big weight right there, and very smart of Jim to, you know, really hit home first before the Kayle gets to be that late game monster.
Yep. But like you said, late game monster. Axel is a ticking time bomb. He just has to reach that point of the game. But dying like that for first blood is certainly going to set him back a little.
Yeah, just a little. Just a little. However, his CS is still fairly good. However, we see another gank coming in. This time around, Jim might get a little bit slowed, and J4 looks like he's roaming around to try and help. That's going to be the shield broken on Jim. He doesn't have flash either, and that's going to be the jump forward flash out from J4, but the kill picked up by Axel. So another gank attempt thwarted by a very nice little bit of a roam from Kakaguri.
Yeah, and really nice that Axel was able to pick up that kill too in the mid lane, because we were just talking about how he fell a little behind in the mid lane thanks to losing first blood there, but able to get killed back for himself, and praises be to Kakaguri for his positioning there, like you did mention.
Yeah, very nice job to hold on right there. And, you know, this is one of the situations where you have to be a little bit worried about, oh, very nice aggression from Radiator Springs in that top lane. But you do have to be a little bit worried about how much you over-aggress. These are teams that, you know, at a certain standard, love punishing mistakes as much as possible.
Yeah, and especially with picks like we see in the solo lanes, you can punish mistakes really hard just thanks to how hard all these picks can snowball in the solo lanes. So everyone is going to have to be on their toes here and keep those jungle paths worded up so they don't fall prey to those ganks.
Yep, and bot lane is going to be so difficult for Sejuani to even touch that lane, considering the boxes, they last, I think, for about a minute. However, for that minute, they are considered wards, so it's just, there is no chance, I think, of Sejuani ever touching that bottom lane.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention, when you do hit the boxes, they will proc the Sejuani passive, so you will be less tanky going into that gank, which does kind of hurt a lot for the Sejuani. But the biggest point is, like you said, those boxes just revealing her and having to clear them out like they are wards, because it's kind of like ganking a Teemo, but the shrooms are on a much lower cooldown.
That too. It is actually only 40 seconds. I'm very sorry about that. However, top lane, we see a little bit of a fight here. However, both junglers are ready to duke it out. The laners, though, saying, no thank you. We're going to go back to farming.
Yeah, just need a little more time to farm up, not really sitting on their power spikes quite yet. Jim Cantor just going to stay in the top lane and help shove in this huge wave here for Baboon. And see, no, they aren't going to deny any CS, but it looks like there's going to be a bit of a 3-man death squad going into the blue side jungle of the Academy team here. Just trying to get some vision down and spot out where Kakaguri is and what's the status of his jungle.
Yeah, there's also it's kind of surprising that they decided to put so much pressure on that top side, considering this is actually an Infernal Drake first dragon here. So, I mean, both teams, you would think this would be a highly contested dragon.
Yeah, you do, but not the point right now. It seems just wanting to wait a little and farm up a bit more. Not to mention, I mean, getting those laners snowball, pretty huge deal. Axel, you have to be careful, no flash.
Yep, no flash. He does get stunned up, rooted and everything, but he does get the Divine Judgment off, and that's going to be the Cataclysm, keeping everyone locked in, and Axel able to shred through the health bars with the little bit of help from Radiator Springs teleporting in for moral support. But Axel picks up one, with J4 picking up the other.
Yeah, and it's just been revenge in the mid lane here ever since that first blood picked up for Axel, because now 2 1-1 on this Kale, feeling really good after that, and it feels really bad here for the main team of HoneyBeesports because they were so close to getting that, but there was just that little split second left where Axel was able to get past the ultimate and stay alive with that invulnerability thanks to the Divine Judgment. And it is going to net them the Infernal Dragon 2 here on the Academy side. It's going to be a pretty big deal like you were mentioning earlier.
Oh, little bit of a mess up there. Coming out of Radiator Springs means he's chunked out full combo, so down to about 50% HP. And a little bit more as he allows the auto attack to go through. This is one of the matchups that is favorable towards Baboom. And so that's why we see these constant lane swaps happening both time and time again. However, it looks like Axel has decided to stay in that mid lane. So this is going to be the matchups that we see from now on. Jupsa versus Axel and Radiator Springs versus Baboom.
Mm-hmm. Although it is certainly going to be a lot easier now that Axel does have that level 6 power spike to have that bit of range, and having the Divine Judgment for the invulnerability if that flashes down is pretty handy too. So definitely going to be a lot easier of a time now for Axel's skill.
Yeah, and Axel just throwing out a little bit of poke as we see Jim Cantor on that bottom lane, clearing out some vision, trying to get a little bit of poke in and start laying down some pressure against Lin and I Enjoy.
Yeah, because this bot lane has been relatively calm. We haven't really seen anything except for like junglers coming by to clear out some wards, because, I mean, we mentioned already how hard it is to gank Link and I Enjoy losing, but also can be a little tricky to gank Danny, Peepboy, and Crystal Lens when those flashes are up.
Yeah. Again, Shaco not running any flash. However, with that deceive, he is able to jump away. Doesn't really care anything about possibly getting caught out. But the piercing arrows, Danny Cute Body really laying down that fire.
And that's just the power of the lethality Varus for you. Maxing that piercing arrow and just fully charging it. The serrated Dirk also going a long way to just piercing early armor. Jupsa Kid hops in.
Yeah, big damage going down onto Axel, but here we go. Chain of Corruption's on that bottom lane. Hallucinate pops out. Can he choose the right one? He does. Ignite burns him down. That's going to be the auto attacks flying Fierce from I Enjoy. Might be able to do it. Does tag him with the fear. However, the damage is not enough. That's going to be a solid win and a kill for Danny Cute Body and Crystal Lens.
Yep, and that's the power of the corrupting chains, not to mention just the all-in power from Galio. So able to go in, and even though it's a Shaco who's very slippery, just the amount of CC lock keeping him in place there, not to mention the ignite damage, ultimately ending up in the dead clown here for I Enjoy losing.
Yeah, you know, they changed the Shaco clone so much. It used to be you could tell which clone it was if you dropped Ignite beforehand. Ignite would only transfer to one, however they changed that. So it's really a guessing game of who is the right target. Again, while that fight was happening on the bottom side, Kakaguri was able to pick up the Rift Herald, so he is walking around with that, going to be finding the optimal lane to toss that down and try and get some extra gold.
And that would be a fairly decent swing this early in the game if you get some plates with it, and maybe even first tower if you're lucky enough. Since, I mean, that's a lot of gold, and with how snowball these compositions can be, it can be a fairly big decider, at least for the early through mid game.
Yeah, that's a very scary position to be in as well. You know, little things are starting to come out, and you know, with only 1,000 gold separating these two teams, you have to keep in mind that both these teams have great hyper carries on their side. You know, the Varus is a good damage dealer, especially with the piercing arrows, but Jax is such a monster towards that late game. Same with the Kales, so any little mistake could easily grant an opening for one of these teams to really take the reins of this game.
Yeah, and we will have to see how it shapes up because we haven't been seeing a ton of action so far yet. It's been fairly calm outside of a few little ganks in the mid lane there and that one fight in the bot. Although we might see a little bit of a tussle come up soon with this Earth Dragon that's spawning in about 45 seconds.
Yeah, you can already see the wars being placed and the boxes as well, so HoneyBee Esports Academy trying to lay down that fire and make sure that they are prepped because they want to be on the second dragon. They don't want to give this one up to, especially to a Sejuani of all people. But here we go. They jump onto Jimkin Tor. And they get the Cataclysm down as well. That's a big chain and root, but that's still going to be Danny Cutebody picking up the kill on Kakaguri. And Jimkin Tor is able to sustain all of that damage.
Yeah, so tanky in the Sejuani already with that fully completed jungle item there. But it might not be over yet since everybody's still squaring up for this dragon, although the Academy team's jungler Kakaguri is not available for this right now.
Yeah, not available, so he is going to get, you know, shut out. That is going to be the Earth Drake or the Mountain Dragon going over to the side of HoneyBee Esports. And they are going to pick that one up. And again, the Frost Armor from Sejuani is just going to get that much stronger.
Yep, and just having all that. Even on carries, it is handy to have that little bit of extra armor and MR, even if it only amounts to a handful, because it still helps you deny flat penetration from carries, which can be really handy against the likes of, say, Lethality Varus.
Yeah, Lethality Varus is just... It's also one of the most painful things. Coming as a mid laner, it's so infuriating to get shot with one of those arrows, especially since it does % health damage if you activate the quiver. So just like that, you take a quarter of someone's health and it's just, oh my lord, it is so infuriating.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Lethality Varus because, I mean, I don't find it too fun just walking up and pressing Q all the time. I like to do some more stuff, but it is a strong
like
pick, I will give it that. Yeah. Hey, at least that's like 2 buttons.
Okay, fair enough.
Lethality Varus is, I'm gonna walk up to the wave, you pull the Q, and then you release your piercing arrow. Rinse and repeat until you get a tower.
Many would argue that's the exact same thing that an ADC does, but you know, we won't get into that conversation right now. We will be seeing a little bit of a fight in the mid lane as that Rift Herald was about to time out. So Kakaguri has to drop that in the mid lane, so that is going to pull a lot of pressure towards that mid. You already see Varus moving in that mid lane, and it's already been stopped up. No, it does hit the tower. However, I don't think anyone was able to get any plate gold for it.
Yep, it is past 14 minutes, so a very low value Rift Herald, but at least they're able to get some damage with it, as Baboon takes a huge trade in that top lane coming out from Radiator Springs, who has just finished that Gunblade. That's a pretty damn huge power spike for the Akali pick.
That is one item for each person. Does mean that their power spikes are matching up, though. This has been a fairly low kill game with gold, dead, even, 1 dragon apiece. But keep this in mind, because it was the Infernal Drake and the Mountain Drake that were both taken, both these teams have a little bit higher gold than expected. They do kind of cancel each other out with 6% extra AD and AP for the Infernal Drake and an extra 4% on the Mountain for armor and magic resist. Both these teams are actually, I don't know if it'll play into their minds a bit with the mental game. However, they're still fairly evenly matched. However, later on, I feel that Infernal is going to give HBE Academy a much higher power spike than many would expect.
Yeah, since... Oh, here comes the Galio.
Yeah, they do get the taunt down, and that's going to be Axel tossing out that Divine Justice, trying to keep himself alive. He is able to survive through the Ignite, but still very nice roam from Crystal Lens.
And that's going to be a lot of damage onto this mid tower, since we all know the Jax game plan of thunk, 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 thunk on towers. But sadly, the wave wasn't quite big enough to really get through that tower, and Kakaguri is now here to try and deter a little bit, but there's the dive.
Yeah, and they go, and that's going to be the golden J4 roaming it out, and that's going to be enough for the kill as Axel teleports in to help out. But here we go on the bottom lane. That's going to be I Enjoy getting found out and poked out. He does get the deceive off and trying to run away, but there's a jump in from Jupes, able to get it. And in the top lane, we see Radiator Spring trying to go like a god as he gets it. One more, he does get it. He gets the jump back in the queue. The 5-point shuriken is there. Meanwhile, on the bottom lane, we see the fight continue as the hero's entrance is there, but doesn't land on anyone. As Crystalline is now slowed. He tries to jump his way out. He is able to land his way out and able to run away. However, the chase is on. Kakaguri is going to try and chase, but the heal coming out from Danny Q body means that they get away alive, only losing 2 total in the entire, I think, minute-long skirmish.
Yeah, and that all started with the initial dive under the tower where Kakaguri was having to fend off both Jukes the Kid and Jim Cantor. In the end, a 2-for-1 in the favor of HoneyBee Academy, although nothing else really picked off of that since there weren't big enough minion waves to really get a solid turret push down, and there weren't any real objectives to go up and grab nearby, so nothing too much coming out of it, but still, a small victory picked up for the Academy team, and they've got to be enjoying that.
Yeah, not only that, Dragon is coming up here in about 30 seconds. And something really big to mention is a lot of the ultimates are heavily timered on the side of HoneyBee Esports for the main squad, as the heroic entrance isn't going to be available. Chain of Corruptions, I think Glacial Prison should be up. But that's still, that heroic entrance is such a big ultimate that if they don't have that, this could be a very dangerous shuriken fight. As we do see a jump in, Kakaguri again jumps up. The shuriken flip from Radiator Springs does tag, but it's not going to be enough to warrant a re-engage.
Yep, everybody's just gonna sit around. Keep in mind though, one key cooldown not available in this team fight is the grand entrance for that Galio support. But everybody's kind of tensing up. It looks like a fight wants to happen. Granted, the main squad, they just kind of want to sit back for a little bit and let Danny Cute Body just rack up that piercing air damage on this Varus to really get the advantage before the fight starts. But as the Ocean Dragon started up, we'll have to see what happens here. A little bit of a pincer movement coming in from the Academy team.
Yeah, Kale backed all the way up, so it says, all right, I don't really want anything to do. However, they have to back off. Good pincer going in. That's going to be Kakaguri jumping all the way in. I Enjoy. His clone is out in the middle, and there we go. Divine Judgment is able to keep Kakaguri alive as he drops Cataclysm. That's going to be the explosive fight as multiple hits are landed from Baboon, but that's going to be in the back line. Axel shredding through everyone with the auto attacks, and that's going to be the Academy squad coming out with 4 members alive. They trade a 2-for-1. In favor of no dragon going down, but a little bit of hell. Oh, big piercing arrow actually lands on Radiator Springs. So overall a 2-for-1, but both sides bleeding heavily.
Yeah, and they're still both eyeing up that dragon, only now just backing off. You see another piercing arrow being charged up, trying to get a little bit of cheeky damage there, but I Enjoy losing, able to dodge out on that. That is going to be the mid tower picked up here for the Academy squad, and that's going to be their second tower of the game, so getting a little bit of objectives off the back of that team fight when they have to be feeling good. Not to mention, one important thing to point out here is that Axel's Kale now 4-1-2 with 181 CS. That is a very farmed and very fed Kale, and that is extremely scary if you are on the main squad.
Oh, Jax didn't get the heads up that the rest of the team is down. He is now getting collapsed on. That is going to be the chase down. They might hand it over. That's going to be Lin K picking that one up.
Yep, and the rest of his team not really able to pick up too much else off the back of it. Just a very caught out Jax there. But that does signal the Ocean startup here for the Academy team. And we'll have to see what happens. It might just be a trade of tower for Ocean here, which would kind of be like a bit of a silver lining trade here. But there's the true shot barrage, and I Enjoy losing. That is the clone going in, I believe. So
yeah.
Getting a little bit of annoyance still.
Yeah, generally speaking, about 75% of the time, if a Shaco's running at you, it's probably a clone. that's
yeah, if he's
usually
running
the consensus
at you in
right there.
full vision and just walking up to you slowly, probably.
About 75% of the time. However, that is going to be the Ocean Drake taken. So far 2-0 on the Dragon claim. Here for the Academy squad, as again, getting down that little mini wombo of Kakaguri jumping in with the Divine Judgment, that is going, it seems to be the go-to combination to get Kakaguri in there to drop the Cataclysm.
Yeah, although They might not need that for the rest of the game, though, since this does seem to be a full tank Jarvan going for the Cinder Hulk directly into the Gargoyle Stone Plate. So he's getting insane amounts of health and percent damage reduction on this Jarvan. Granted, always handy to have that Divine Judgment as a bit of a backup plan.
Yeah, always nice to have. Again, we were talking about how high an itemization actually for a lot of champions, as we do see the the Guinsoo's Rage Blade completed for Axel. He did go for the Blade of the Ruin King first, so that's why he didn't have as much damage output as he usually does. Most kills generally would go I think it's the Gnasher's Tooth into Guinsoo's is the general attack speed build that you want. So this is a little bit different as we see Axel get jumped on. Ooh, big flashback out as Jupsa actually under the tower says, all right, I really didn't want that fight. I'm very sorry.
And now we're just going to see Axel kind of heal back up to full here, thanks to the Ocean, thanks to the Blade of the Ruin King. But looks like he is just going to hang back a little here, knowing he's a little far. Here comes Jim Cantor trying to get himself into Kali.
Yeah, with the Shuriken flip, though, they say, okay, no can do. We are going to back away.
Yep, just no surprise there. Get the hell out, and they kind of recognize this probably isn't going to happen here. Still, though, everything just kind of resets back to normal. So I say that, a little bit of a fight in the bot lane. There's the teleport. There's the grand entrance.
Yeah, that's a lot used, and Crystal Lens now caught out a little bit. He does have the flash, but that's two heavy carries coming out, and that's the perfect execution. Not getting the kill, but burning another flash. So a nice little win there for those in the bottom lane.
Takaguri gonna be caught out a little by Jim Cantor, and bot lane, though, going back to there, that means this Kale is just gonna have even more time to free farm. Already at 210 CS, gonna get himself another tower on this Kale as well. If you take a quick peek at the gold, there's 2,200 gold separating these two top laners, and this Kale has the most gold in the game right now, which is a very good thing if you're on the academy side, but if you're on the main squad, you're probably shaking in your boots a little right now, Orbital.
A little, however, you do have to remember there are no QSSs out or any Crucibles, so the conception that that they are able to lock down kill is still very much a reality. They still have the Glacial Prism, they still have the Jax Leap and Counter-Strike, they still have Crystal Lens with the taunt as well, so they have multiple ways to still lock down Kale. The question is can they burn down the target before the Divine Judgment comes out?
That is going to be one of the hardest things, because you can CC lock the Kale, but even if you CC lock the teammates, it's a little tricky. Fight in the bot lane,
yeah,
though.
just like that as Jupsa immediately pinched in as the Clown gets his last revenge, able to use a Hallucinate and pick up a very easy kill.
Yeah, with the help of that exhaust too. And this Shaco has been paying some dividends in these team fights, as we've seen. But also there, oh, Jim Cantor.
Yeah, Kakaguri already used the flag, and he's not gonna get the drag as he gets rooted, chained down, taunted, and killed. Danny Cute Body picking up his second of the game.
And that's absolutely massive with this Baron up on the table. We'll see if the Go Trigger is pulled, because there is no smite to contest it, and there are only 2 members realistically in the area to contest, but that won't be the case here, just fearing they would do it a little too slow, and kind of makes sense since they don't have the Jax there from Jupsa Kid, and he'll be their main way of taking down that Baron, because Lethality Varus, he does a lot of damage with poke, but not the best at taking objectives. Although, Caster Curse, I guess, as I spoke too soon, Baron being started up.
Yeah, it is started up as it is still 2 seconds for Kakaguri to come up, but that's going to be a teleport from Axel. He is going to be looking to shred this. Remember, Baron already got the 10 stacks down on everyone. They have reduced magic resistant armor. That's going to be the jump in. Hextech GLP goes out, but that's going to be the jump in as well. Big taunt lands, but big damage is larger as in the backline. Radiator Springs is popping off. Gets 1 kill, gets jumped on, dodges out on the second, and that's going to be a kill for I Enjoy, as the rest of the main squad have to run away, and in a very split fight. HoneyBeesports Academy are ready to pick it up as the True Shot Barrage goes out. Jupsa Kid was taunted up and locked down from the boxes, but they do get away safely. However, big Baron attempt results in failure, and the Academy squad are able to pick up 2 kills and a very large objective.
Yeah, because we saw how slow the main squad was doing Baron there, and that was ultimately their down. Plus, also, they didn't really decide to peel off of it soon enough, because they should have started it, baited out the fight, and then just immediately peeled off to take the 5 versus 4, but they peeled off a little too late. They had a bit of damage on them, and that results in them losing the Baron and 2 of their members. But it looks like it's also going to result in them losing the second Ocean Dragon as well. So that's going to be Elder Point right now for the Academy side.
Yeah, big note to make. Once you're on that 3rd Drake, that does mean you're forced into a certain position, or if you have the 3 Drakes, you are able to force the enemy into very disadvantageous situations for them. No one wants to give up a soul, which, surprisingly enough, Ocean Drake itself is still considered one of the weakest dragons, only giving a little bit of health back every yeah, only 2.5% of your missing health every 5 seconds, so this is currently 5%. But here's the thing, is the Ocean Soul is considered one of, if not the strongest dragon soul in the current game.
Yeah, because it's just so obnoxious, because keep in mind it also stacks with all the oceans you got before that, so you're already getting the consistent % missing health regen from those previous oceans, but also you're just getting that constant regen from the soul, like you said, and it can be so obnoxious to face, because I've seen cases where one team gets the Ocean Soul, they kind of lose a bit of a team fight, and they're all down super low. Single minion wave comes and they're all back to full. Axel has to be careful.
Yeah, that's going to be a little bit of a hold there as the Glacial Prison does go wide. That's going to be a teleport hold from Radiator Springs as well, so little bit unfortunate as Radiator Springs is able to throw down that Hextech Gunplay, get a little bit of slow on Jim Cantor. But no dice as they back away. The bottom lane now under siege.
And there's not too much all these melee picks from the side of HoneyBeesports main team can really do. They're really relying on Danny Keepboy's wave clear on that Varus to help deal with this push, but he can only do so much, especially since he didn't itemize the tier. He doesn't exactly have the largest of mana reserves.
Yeah, that's going to be the jump in as Jupsa Kid is able to go a little bit hard in the paint here, able to throw it down, flashes out, and able to draw the heroic entrance, finally landing for once. Taunt goes out, and that's going to be the just divine not happening for Axel as he goes down, giving the shutdown over to Jax.
Yeah, but that cost Jupsa's Kid flash there, not to mention the heroic entrance. But taking down the most important Baron buff is a pretty big deal, at least, and they were able to hold on to that mid tower. So HoneyBeesports' main squad, they're at least holding off this Baron push.
Yeah, you know, when you're down gold, when you're down in certain objectives, the best thing to do is itemize what objectives and what your win conditions are. At this point, the best thing for HoneyBee Esports to do is just try and get a little bit of gold back. And again, putting 1,000 gold from a shutdown onto your Jax, great way to start getting back in this game.
Yeah, that is such a huge point there, because this Jax was falling behind. I mean, sure, he scales pretty damn well, but he was 2,200 gold down last time we checked, and that was 5 or 10 minutes ago. So with how things have been going, he's probably fallen further behind, and just narrowing that gap a little bit more on this Jax is going to go such a long way.
And not only that, we haven't really seen that gold income really help him out just yet, because he went for 2 of the highest gold items in the market. You have the Trinity Force plus Blade of the Rune King. Both of those are pretty high in cost. So he is now building, I think, towards that Wit's End. As you can see, the Negatron Cloak, and there it is, the Recurve Bow coming in as well. So both those items should build into the Wit's End, should be able to sustain against Axel just that much more.
Although would have helped if he did have the Ninja Tab Eyes instead of the Merc Treads here, since just negating all that auto attack damage from the primarily on hit damage of Kale can be absolutely massive. But the Wit's End will go a long way, like you said.
Yeah, gonna be pretty crazy to see again. Merc Treads, though, I think are the proper choice. Again, the Kale auto attacks, they do mainly magic damage, I believe. Is that correct? Once you hit level 11, it is mainly magic damage. So again, getting the Merc Treads, not only that though, getting that to stop the slows is a big thing. You know, running into those boxes, possibly the most annoying thing besides a Teemo Shroom.
Oh god, yeah. Because the fear lasts a very long time. Top lane, though, there's an all-in.
Yeah, another fight here as Kid is going to keep going in. This is going to be very, very close as Axel able to take it just barely. And that was, you can actually see the healing coming in from Axel. So able to pick up that one for 1v1 kill. That does create a 4v4 on this bottom lane with Axel just pushing that top lane. And that does mean HoneyBee Esports do have to back off and concede the 4th Drake. Such a heavy loss. All their hopes on Kid were just scrapped in that 1v1.
Yeah, and going back to that 1 versus 1, you're talking about the sustain, because there's the Blade of the Room King and a Death Stance completed here for Axel, which is so much sustain, and there's no grievous wounds built up yet for Kid. Not to mention, Axel does also now have the QSS, so the 1 health you had of CC locking down the scale is more or less gone, unless you are just a god at syncing up CC. But that is going to be so much sustain on the scale, and we only just now have an Executioners coming out from Danny CuteBody, but that's not going to really affect the split push, as you'd have to see a Bramble Vest coming out from Kid. But speaking of things we're seeing a second Baron being picked up here for the Academy squad.
Yeah, that's a level 17 Kales, so obviously at the highest power spike you can get with the passive. That's going to be the clone getting chunked out, and there we go. Popped goes the Weasel. Crystal Lens is the one on the receiving end of that damage and taunt as he gets his way to safety.
And keep in mind, that was a 4-man Baron because Radiator Springs was in that bot lane, and he's still split pushing right now. And this is going to be probably the straw that breaks the camel's back here for the main squad, because we're going to most likely see the base being broken open. Radiator Springs might be in a little bit of trouble. We see 2 members hovering towards that bot lane.
Yeah, they are moving a little bit of a way. This is a 2-2-1 scenario, possibly 3-2-1 if the Hallucinate comes out. But each lane being pressured, and HoneyBee Esports are just being dragged everywhere, playing to the tempo of the Academy squad. They do get a little bit of a jump in as Kakiguri runs away, but does get stunned up with the Glacial Prison. That's going to be the taunt. The kill coming in quite possibly. He does launch his way out. He's actually going to survive. Jinkin now on the receiving end of some damage, and he goes down. Chenko pops forces Crystal Lens into the fight, so he goes down as well. That's a 2-0 so far for the Academy squad. As the flash comes out, though, directly into the counter-strike, so that's going to be a shutdown going over to Kid. He is about 3/4 health, so he's having to hop right back in, gets the counter-strike up once again, gets the stun as well. He does get leaped away from, but in comes a slam from Baboom. He is going to try and help the team as much as possible, but it's too little too late, as the Divine Judgment is able to keep the team alive, and Axel going ham right now. 7-2-7 says, no thank you, we want this win more than you do, and they take the fight 4-2 in favor of HoneyBee Esports Academy, as we see a little bit of a taunt, but that doesn't matter, as the Nexus is going down, and HoneyBee Esports Academy take game number 1.
Yep, and it wasn't a dominating fashion, but is a fairly strong fashion, just winning in all the objective trades. And Axel just able to sneak his way out on that kill, because we initially were a little worried at the beginning of the game where he gave up that first blood a little, unfortunately, but he really came back in that game, doing the most damage out of anyone actually in the game by a fairly decent margin as well.
Yeah, a big part of that was, in the early game, HoneyBee Esports had the right idea. They were putting a lot of pressure in that mid lane. They knew how scary Kale could be, and getting that first kill was great. Here's the problem is I feel like they started telegraphing their ganks a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really see Jim Cantor really get much done after that first gank, ending up 1-6-3 on the Sejuani. Not the best of scorelines, and it goes to show not the biggest impact made by him.
Yeah, not exactly the best. However, looking towards that game number 2, I mean, what do you think the squad needs to do? Because we did see glimmers of hope, right? The Jax popping off, getting a couple kills and shutdowns, as well as the Varus with a few really good chains of corruption.
Their biggest downfall that game was letting Axel just more or less have a free time on the scale after that initial gank, and then also just feeding him a bunch of kills, because he got so much farm and so much gold after that initial time, and that really kind of sealed the deal as the game went on.
Yeah, that is going to be it. So that is going to be game number 1 in the books as the Academy squad are looking to prove themselves in this tournament. They do go up 1-0 in this best of 3, so we'll have to see if HoneyBee Esports are able to come back in game number 2 or if the Academy squad will sweep the battle of the sister teams. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this sister matchup here. We do have HBE Academy taking game number one in pretty commanding fashion, I do have to say. They played it very, very well in this game. This time around, Honeybee Esports are on the blue side. They will be looking to try and get a win against their sister team and bring this series back to a standstill.
Yeah, because like you said, there were some glimmer of hopes for them in that last game, but it ultimately came down to the snowball kept piling up, and Axel just kind of kept getting more and more gold on that kale. So if they're gonna let that kale through again, they're gonna have to stop that this time around.
Yeah, they might have to, as we do have Honeybee be getting into the draft against Honeybee Esports with Zoe, Pantheon, Misfortune, and Olaf. So pretty much the same bands as game number one. Pending across the side, except again, there it is, the Kale band.
Yeah, no surprise there, but that does leave open. Oh, never mind. I was gonna say that leaves open the Zac that was banned away last game, but that is gonna leave the set open that was banned away last time, and the insta lock-in of the set for Honeybee Esports' main team here. No surprise there, since set still a very powerful pick.
Yeah, Showstopper plus the Haymaker, two of the most damaging abilities, even if he builds pretty much full health. So gonna be enjoying that fight coming out here. J4 though, HoneyBee had been able to make it work in game number one with some beautiful cataclysms, I have to say, from Kakaguri. So they say, all right, you didn't ban it, so let's take it and we'll run it right back. However, they will have to find a new carry. As they do, however, that ADC once again.
Yep. Although one thing to go back on in the Jarvan is one of the reasons it was so successful for the Academy team last game is every time he went in, he had that divine judgment if he needed it, so he wouldn't get immediately blown off and get those game-winning cataclysms we saw time and time again. But I'll have to see, because eventually it did reach the point that he was so tanky on Jarvan, because that last fight we saw the desperate attempt by the mid inhibitor tower, they threw so much at that Jarvan, and they just weren't able to finish him off.
They really weren't, and you know, one of the fun things in solo queue is always entertaining is seeing the GA second item J4 just dive headlong into a fight. You know, has a GA, doesn't worry too much. However, that does leave yourself very vulnerable for the next, I think, like 5 minutes or so. So not exactly the most optimal build to go. We do see the Syndra blind pick here for Honeybee Esports, and the Varus locked in once again. So the Varus against the Ezreal definitely seems to be the matchup that Honeybee Esports prefer.
Yeah, and they were getting the wins in the lane eventually last game. It was very calm at the first bit, but then we saw an all-in or two that ultimately netted them a decent advantage in that lane. But the Yuumi from last game was slipped through, unlike last game. So that's immediately locked in here for the Academy side. And Yuumi Ezreal was a pretty potent force.
Yeah, and it's always just so... It used to be the premiere back when Yuumi could still ride on the person that they tagged to. When they teleported, however, that has changed. So usually we see the Exhaust Ignite on Yuumi with the heal on Ezreal, still very standard. However, just having that triple combination of aggressive spells, allowing for trades in the bottom lane to go very one-sided if they're able to pull it off.
Not to mention just all the heals and shields Yuumi can pull out, and the dual combination of the poke coming out from that Mystic shot and the prowling projectile. Absolutely massive. Even compared to Varus, it can add up. Granted, if we do see the lethality Varus again, it is gonna hurt.
It is very much going to hurt. I'm pretty sure at higher rank, I wonder, I've never seen this, if a lethality Varus can literally one-shot a Yuumi if played properly. That would be so just sad to see. However, on the ban list, we are on the second round of bans. We do have the Leona Sona being banned away on Honeybee B's side, with Vladimir and Akali being banned away on Honeybee Esports side. So again, taking out two premier carries. They're both the solo laners from the original game one.
Yep, and pretty good bans, honestly. But if we actually see the Zillion here, that would be very zilly, because there would be a lot of just pure stopping the killing moves between Yuumi and Zillion, and that is indeed a Zillion locked in, so very high peel composition coming out from the Academy side.
Yeah, one of those matchups that, might seem a little boring on paper in the mid lane, but brings so much utility towards that mid to late. We are looking for that support and jungle pickup here for HoneyBee Esports, so going to be very interesting to see what they lock in.
Yeah, and it's gonna be the Namis. So that's a pick that hasn't been around, well, in the premier point of competitive in quite some time, actually. So I'm gonna be curious if this is just more of a lane counter pick here coming out from the main squad.
That might be it. However, trading blows with the utility sorcerer, blow for blow, heal for heal. I think that might work in that bottom lane. Shen being locked in here as well, so that is going to be a set jungle with Shen rounding out the top side. HoneyBee B do respond, and they do pick up the gangplank, or they hover the gangplank, which is another good carry potential in that top side.
Yeah, it would mean that their composition is primarily physical damage, because they did remove a decent chunk of Yumi's damage in her last series of big changes. And Zilean, while Double Bomb can do a very large chunk to carries, it's not a sustainable DPS source. So gonna be mostly physical damage, but I think they'll have enough magic damage to work with here on the Academy side. And it is a very interesting composition coming out from them.
I mean, what interests you the most? Because the last game also, we saw this kind of skirmish heavy kind of style, right? It wasn't really front to back composition. It was flank around, try and get the right position, try and get that stalling technique, draw out the ultimates, right? So do you think this composition from HoneyBee B has the same potential as game number 1?
Definitely not in terms of just all-out brawling power, but around objectives, they could have really, really strong and potent control there. Just with the zone control coming out from all the mystic shots, the prowling projectiles, the barrels, the bombs, that can really add up in terms of poke and just zoning potential. Not to mention, there is a lot of disengage on the side of the Academy team here, because you have the Arcane Shift, you have the Cataclysm, just flag and dragging out of it, you of course have the Chrono Break, but also the Gangplank Cannon Barrage is such a huge disengage tool as well.
Especially with all the upgrades, Gangplank, one of the feared top laners if you let him get rolling a little bit too long. And again, remember, it was actually Axel playing that Kayle, really popping off last time. So again, on a very heavy farmer, possibly able to run a very quick game towards that mid to late. And I do want to talk about this jungle matchup now, as Set is one of those, I want to say, junglers that we didn't expect to jungle, right? It's just, he's meant, and it seems to be meant more for that top lane, bruiser setting. What do you think of this matchup between the J4 and the Set this time around?
I haven't really seen too much Set jungle, so I can't comment too much on it. Granted, though, I feel like if the Set catches out the J4 in a heads-on 1-versus-1 duel, that Set should be winning pretty handily, just thanks to how his kit goes. So it could be pretty disastrous, but we also know how potent Jarvan ganks are, especially early on in the game. And Set, he doesn't really have the best ganking potential pre-6. He really needs the choke slam.
Yeah, really needs that showstopper to really put it in, as well as the E, as you were saying, the choke slam. So both of those are going to cause an issue. However, it does seem like he has a lot of potential set up in the other lanes with the Shen taunt, with the Syndra Scout of the Week, and in the bottom lane as well, the Nami bubble plus Chain of Corruption is at level 6. Looking at both these squads, we're looking at the compositions overall. I do want to get your opinion. Looking at these sides, do you think either side has easier win conditions than the other when it comes to trying to force their overall tempo and flow to the game?
I would say the main squad does this time around, because you have a lot more go buttons to actually force fights, whereas on the side of the Academy team, you don't really have the biggest go buttons. You have the Jarvan flag and drag into Cataclysm, but there's not a ton of follow-up off the back of it. Not like last game where you also had the Akali diving in with you, you had the Kayle Divine Judgment to protect you. So the main team, they definitely have the easier composition to execute, but the Academy team here, they might just have the more obnoxious team, quote unquote, just due to how much disengage, heals, and peels they have.
All right, we'll have to see if that comes true. However, we are going to go to a very short break as we do try to, again, make sure competitive integrity is kept in this match. But before we do, I do want to talk about one of our fantastic sponsors, Midwest Esports. Midwest Esports has been around for many years, starting as a small student group out of Wichita State University. Since then, Midwest Esports has grown to be a premier organizer to tournaments and events throughout the U.S. They host tournaments for games like League of Legends, Rocket League, as well as Overwatch. For more information, check them out at midwestesports.com. So please go check them out. And if you are still sticking around, thank you so much. We will be right back in just a few with game number 2 between HoneyBee Esports and HoneyBee. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to game number 2 between HoneyBee Esports and HoneyBee. Both these squads looking to get a win on their board. If HoneyBee wins this match, they will be able to move on to the next round. I believe that is the quarterfinals of the UCL playoffs. If HoneyBee Esports win, they keep their playoff dreams alive by forcing a game number 3. We did see a little cheeky attempt at an invade here, but immediately spotted out by Axel.
Yeah, similar to last game, because last game, HoneyBeesports, they also tried something similar, but was spotted out by a Shaker Box. Granted, this time just spotted out by Axel instead. Either way, though, nothing too cheeky coming out level 1, and both teams just going to be sitting back and doing the standard 5-man fan, not even going for any deep words here from the HoneyBee team.
Yeah, again, you don't want to get caught by a bubble, plus the auto attack damage coming out is very fierce, so instead They opt for a little bit slower, and we do see both of the junglers did drop pretty safe wards and then go back for the sweepers. Pretty standard on any jungler right now.
Jopsakid and Axel are going to meet up here. Nothing too much coming out of it.
Oh.
But we have a delayed invade, and this isn't known. Kakeguri.
Oh, but he does get the blue buff, gets the flash as well. And now they're going to try and trade this. Not sure if this is what you want to do, as they do get to fight. Both heals come out. That's going to be the first blood going over to Lin as he picks that one up, but the trade kill 1-for-1 is there. But Danny Cute Body trying to dance his way back. That's going to be a flash forward into the Mystic Shot. He does pick that one up as well. That's going to be the auto attack flying fierce and heavy, and a triple kill to start the game off for Lin on HoneyBee. They are so happy for what just expired.
That is so disastrous for HoneyBeesports there. Had they been able to secure that blue buff with the smite coming out from Jim Cantor, that would have gone so differently. But because Kakeguri hit that level 2, he's able to hit that huge flag and drag onto all of them. And then Link was able to stack up that Conqueror and just continuously hammer out damage on the Ezreal. And very disastrous. Shuri able to get that one kill and technically set Kakeguri behind, but Jim Cantor is going to be so far behind on this set right now. And that 3-0 Ezreal, he already has 1,200 gold sitting in his pocket right now if he backs.
Yes, he does. And I mean, we were talking about how, Kakeguri is a little bit far behind, but that doesn't matter because he's actually 3-buffing Jim Cantor right now. We see J4 hopping over the wall, might get taunted. No, he gets it. You actually saw on the mini-map if you were watching it, sorry. We saw J4 almost get caught out. He was able to jump the wall just at the right time as Shen tried to taunt over the wall, so he was able to get the flag and drag combo. And that means Jim Cantor is now drastically further behind without his 3 buffs.
Yeah, drastically farther is an understatement because this is going to be an under-leveled set, and working off of jungle economy isn't the best when you're set because he does like a bit more of the expensive items like the Triforce and also other bruiser items, but we'll have to see if he's able to pull back from this. Baboom, though.
Yeah, big double bomb stun, and Baboom, I think, is just dead. Second bomb does take down. Radiator Springs brings a little bit of life to this mid lane.
Yeah, and now 1-0 on the Zillion. That's going to be pretty huge because that Zillion hits level 6 before the Syndra. That's going to deny all the snowballing potential from Baboon because he had to go the teleport to match Radiator Springs teleport, and that means he won't have the Ignite, and having to go through the Chrono Shift is going to be so hard.
Yeah, not exactly the situation you want to be in. So big kills across the board so far for HoneyBee as they take a commanding lead. Here we go, jump in again. Baboom doesn't get knocked up this time, so very happy about that. Doesn't have to, well, he doesn't have the flash, very sorry about that. So very nice tempo so far for the red team, and gonna see if they can continue this commanding lead as Dragon is about to spawn in 30 seconds.
Yeah, and it's gonna be pretty huge, but I don't think we're gonna see any super early dragons here with the current state of the game, because even though Link did get that massive 3-kill level 1 lead, he did still have to go back and buy that tier first to stack that up, so he doesn't have any damaging items right now outside of that longsword and the Doran's blade. Plus, also, when your mid laner is, of course, the Zillion, and he's going for the Rod of Ages first, it looks like, he's only sitting on the Catalyst, so that's not a ton of damage either. So we might not actually see an early dragon come out for HoneyBee, even though they do have that fairly strong early.
Yeah, they really do. This does just mean that Lin is going to spike much earlier into the game, which I would hate to see whoever is on the receiving end of one of his mystic shots at about 15 minutes into the game. But that is going to be a potential situation. And again, this also bodes very disastrous for the side of Jim Cantor, as he needs his laners to really be ahead and be dominating these lanes if he wants to try and get some ganks off, I feel.
Yeah, but like you said, he's fallen very far behind early on. Not to mention his laners are all kind of a bit behind themselves, except in that top lane, who actually has a bit of a CS lead. Still, though, I mean, not the best position to be in as a set jungle, and we might have a little bit of a brawl between the two junglers here around this dragon, but Kakeguri just gonna back off.
Yeah, you don't really want to fight. He doesn't have as much mana, and Lin and iEnjoy don't actually have lane priority right now, so it's not the chance that you want to have. However, Radiator Springs is ready to go, possibly But that actually looks like a very solid dragon take, as the fear of getting jumped on is too great, and Jimkin Torre is able to secure an Ocean Drake for himself with almost no contest.
Yeah, that's pretty huge considering what we saw early game, because it's 4-1 in kills, and having this will help out the laners immensely. Just that constant missing health regen. Even though it's only 2.5% missing health this early on in the game when you're still in laning phase, that's absolutely massive for just all these constant trades and pokemons.
Yeah, a little bit of a trade back and forth in this bottom lane. Just trying to lay something down, honestly. Very slow pace after that early aggression coming out on both sides. So also to point out, that is not an ignite exhaust as I thought we were going to have on the Yuumi. That is a heal exhaust with the teleport still on Lin K. So Ezreal's still going to have the mobility that he does in general.
Yep, but not having the ignite is going to suck if you do have to do those to all ends. But the exhaust will be very nice alongside the heal, just for all that extra bit of peel in teamfights later on in the game.
Ooh, good damage going down on Krista right there. Little trade means that Krista is taken down, but immediately gonna heal that back up with the ebb and flow.
Yep. Granted though, the ebb and flow, since you do max that first on Nami, you can go through mana so easily as her. She has kind of some fairly strong mana problems early on thanks to that spell, but able to manage so far fairly well on this Nami.
Yeah, with the new itemization, you can stay in lane quite a bit more. You actually saw her go back and pick up the early fairy charms. So this is actually a pretty high trend on a lot of champions where you have mana sustain problems. It's only a little 125 gold, measly 125, so it might not be bad to pick up, as we do see top lane fighting. Meanwhile, in the mid lane as well, bombs being dropped down multiple times, but again, Baboom, after that first death, has honestly done a very good job of keeping himself out of a double bomb situation.
Yeah, since he does have zone potential, thanks to the Scatter the Weak stun being potentially pretty huge, because you can't use the Chrono Shift if you are stunned up.
Yeah, that's why you go the Rod of Ages. Just, all right, you know what? You stun me, but you can't burn me until I hit my R, because I'll have the health pool for that. So he's happy to try and sit there, soak up, and keep in the CS range. We actually did see a double Doran start from Baboom, so that is going to slow down his build patch just a little bit. That's an extra 400 gold that you drop into trying to force the early game, and it's just, in my opinion, not kind of worth it at that point, because you're already behind. You're not really going to be killing anyone anytime soon. That's normally why you would want to grab that second Doran. So not sure if it was worth it, but we'll have to see coming into the latter half of this game.
Yeah, because it is going to matter a lot for the laning phase, and that's where you want to make it work. But hasn't really been working out too much. You've been winning trades, yeah, but still basically even in CS, and you weren't able to get any kills off of it either. So not really working out, like you said. Jupes has to be careful. Where's the flag and drag? Come on.
Oh, he is playing the long game here. This is the longest game I think I've ever seen. Oh my gosh, there we go. Nice little jump in there. That's going to be the jump out and the flash. And that's going to be the jump in. But Kakaguri now possibly going to die. He does go golden in time, but that's going to be multiple teleports coming all the way in. That's going to be the kill coming out as the top laners now fighting. Jimkin Torre is there with Radiator Spring teleporting in. That's going to be Axel and Kakaguri trying to make their way out, but Baboom is here ready to force his way back out. Chrono Shift is available, so you see the dodges, but Kakaguri puts on his dancing shoes, and that's going to be a failed flash from Radiator Spring, signals his death. Kakaguri getting the flag and drag back out, but a 1-for-1 trade overall. And that was it looked so good into an oh no situation.
Yeah, because diving Shen is so hard with that Twilight Shroud, and we saw he was basically gonna die. Kakaguri had that auto winded up, but it came out and you just heard the ting. And that was kind of like the oh shit moment there for them.
Yeah, it really was. And then the follow-up as well, with the rotate from Baboom, didn't want to burn the teleport, didn't feel like it was necessary, and actually nets himself a kill as Radiator. It's a very small ledge. I don't know where he clicked. However, you should generally be able to make your way over that edge of the wall, and instead he face plants into that side and just grants over a kill pretty free right there. So big costly mistakes coming out, you know, could signal a resurgence from HoneyBee Esports here.
Yeah, because while that was happening, Jim Cantor was able to pick up that Rift Herald for his team, so getting some very nice important objectives early on, and that can really help him break open a lane here of his choice if he's able to get a gank off. Doesn't quite have the ultimate yet, but that showstopper will be back up in about 30 seconds, I want to say.
Yeah, just about 30 seconds, and just in time for the Infernal Drake to come up. Once again, remember that Jim Cantor was able to grab the first dragon, and that's because of the lane dominance from all of the single lanes. However, the itemization is a little bit different this time around. We're still looking for the first item completion from Baboom, whereas the Rod of Ages is completed for Radiator. However, it does look like they're just going to give this one up to... I'm not sure if you want to do this because this is Infernal Drake.
Yeah, very important, and they even technically have the item advantage here. A full mana immune for Lin on that Ezreal, not to mention Radiator Springs has that Rod of Ages finish, but is opting not to get it, and we are going to have the Cloud Soul this game.
Ooh, potential 40% CDR on a Chrono Shift of all things would be so mean if HoneyBee B were able to do that.
That would be very disgusting, to say the least. But we'll have to see. Here comes Kakiguri.
Yeah, big jump in. That's going to be the last chapter going out, as well as Tidal Wave, but here comes Stand United catching Kakiguri out, and he's just going to go down. Will, oh, and the predicted bubble means Lin K goes down. I Enjoy is going to follow suit as Jim Cantor is here for the emotional support, and they're able to pick up a very easy 3-man kill.
Yeah, so easy. They made it look like child's play there, but that is the strength. They had the teleport from Baboon in the mid lane to join in, and then also the Stand United coming out from Jupsa on the Shen, so really hard to actually take down. So what started as a 3 versus 2 became a 3 versus 4 actually, and looks like we might see the first tower fall here in the mid lane with that Rift Herald pop. Keep in mind that was also with all the plates up still, so all the plate gold and first tower gold picked up here for both Baboom and Jim Cantor.
Yeah, and as the time winds down again, plates disappear at 14 minutes. That's going to be a grand total of, I believe, 7 plates taken on the side of HoneyBee Esports to the 3 that were taken by HoneyBee B. So big gold swing for them. That puts them at about 900 gold in the lead.
And that was... we thought this game was kind of over at level 1 here, Orbital, because that was the most disastrous invade ever, but they've managed to be able to even up the kills here now, 5-5, with a 2 dragon lead, and now also with the first tower as well. I mean, the HoneyBee Esports team, they're making some pretty strong strides to come back into this game.
They are. The big question that I have is, you know, in game number 1, especially with 3 kills on Lin, I don't know why you wouldn't contest either of those dragons, right? It really surprised me that they didn't even try for the Ocean Drake at the beginning, which I honestly feel they at least could have attempted to, you know, stalled it out, possibly gone for kills, but they just full on let it go, and instead now they're trapped in a situation where, you know, Cloud Drakes, yes, they're great and all for ultimates, but you still have to deal with an Infernal and Ocean Drake on the other side.
Yeah, and it's going to be massive, as we might have a little bit of a gank coming bot lane from Jim Cantor. Currently recalling in that Tri-Brush, though. Never mind, cancel that. He's going to be walking over that ward, though, and instantly pinged out. See if we have a dive here, since he and Baboom are walking into that jungle.
Yeah, missed Scout of the Week means no real damage down on Radiator Springs or Kakiguri. So that is going to be okay for the time being. Jim Cantor, though, sitting on that bottom side, really waiting to try and fight something out. As we do see J4 roaming his way a little bit further down, we now see Jim Cantor ready to go. They are going to try and force their way on this tower. Out goes the last chapter, as well as Cannon Barrage. Everything in the kitchen sink has been thrown. That's going to be a trade kill, though, as the piercing arrow finds its mark. Showstopper brings Kakiguri back, but that brings him in range of the Cataclysm into the double bomb, and Danny Q body has to run. As the Scout of the Week lands, Kakiguri almost gets hit with a piercing arrow. Might be enough for the unleashed power. No, one more Q does it. and a roam down signaled. A very nice stun as the Scout of the Week shotgun brings out the Chrono Shift from Radiator Swing, since he's going to get down, able to flash away from the Haymaker. Double Bomb doesn't land once again, but still, overall 2 for 1 in favor of HoneyBee Esports.
Yeah, and what's more is, keep in mind, Jupsa Kid didn't have the Stand United available for that fight. It came up towards the end, so that was without having to deal with that. So absolutely massive, and you can imagine how much worse it could have gone had that Shen been able to join.
Yeah, it definitely would have been bad, and I mean, this composition that HoneyBee Esports has drafted seems to be working wonders for them. Before, they were having trouble rotating around the map, catching out Axel, and I mean, this time around, Axel, yes, he's Gangplank, so he's doing what he should be, which is farming the top lane, right? It has a 30 CS lead or so, but at the same time, I mean, it just seems like, you know, HoneyBee Esports now have the number of HoneyBee.
Yeah, because going back to the Gangplank point you brought up, sure, the Gangplank does scale fairly well for Axel, but it's not a late game hyper carry like that Kale, so you aren't going to be 1 versus 5 on it like we saw last game. And all that has really gotten out of that in the top lane is a bit of global pressure with that cannon barrage, not to mention a bunch of grass procs and some tower damage. But HoneyBee, they want to contest this dragon.
Yeah, they do. Kakaguri now dashing in the back. That's going to be the drag in as Axel gets pulled, but the Stand United is there. Haymaker lands as well, and Axel goes down to the piercing arrow. That's going to be the follow-up as Unleashed Power goes out, and the Cataclysm keeps his own team in there as well. Such an unfortunate trade as a double kill comes out for Jupsa Kid, and an overall 3 for 0 once again for HoneyBee Esports.
Yeah, and that's going to net up the 3rd dragon of this game here. It's going to be a Cloud, and that's going to be absolutely massive for their ultimates. Like, just think of Stand United with that extra 10% CDR, and think a Chain of Corruption with that much more CDR. It's going to really add up here. But we finally did see HoneyBee. They tried to contest a dragon, but it was just so scattered, and they ultimately didn't really have the damage yet, because is Ezreal not fully online yet? Sure, you have that completed Muramana, but don't have the Triforce finished quite yet, and the Gangplank still hasn't finished his first crit item, so only sitting on the Triforce, which, while a fairly decent power spike in its own, you really want that crit to get those big boy barrels going.
Yeah, not only that, he hasn't been able to upgrade his barrel, his ultimate at all. Still sitting at about 460 farm for the silver coin. So he is drastically far behind, I feel, in terms of itemizing for his ultimate. And again, branching out now, that's a 2.8k lead for HoneyBee Esports with 3 dragons as well. You know, just, it looks like, you know, considering their sister teams, it's almost like you could swap sides and no one would know the difference. This could be a repeat of game number 1.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it just might come down to the compositional choice here for HoneyBee, because they opted for a very peel-heavy sort of team comp here, but we kind of mentioned in Champs like that they didn't really have the best ways to start off fights, and we've kind of saw it in that last fight there.
Really are, and again, it was also a little bit of a mix-up. I feel, you know, Kakaguri was still sitting in the Dragon Pit even though his team was getting run off, and I don't know why you would do that. However, he did, and it just allowed the rest of HoneyBee Esports to collapse in, get a little bit of poke down. So now we have to see what they can pull off, and if they're able to make it work once again.
Yeah, I mean, by no means, HoneyBee is not out of this game just yet, because it is only that 2.5k gold lead. Granted, though, they do have to stop the bleeding at some point, and those dragons are adding a lot of power to this gold lead.
It really is. Top lane now being the point of contention as Jupsa almost gets the scuttle stolen away from it as the bot lane, the top laners go bot and the bot laners go top. So that's gonna be a good trade, and that's gonna be a drag in as a Cataclysm in the backline. Double bomb lands as well into the last chapter, so everything in the kitchen sink being thrown. That's gonna be a kill, but that's gonna be the showstopper. Claiming the kill on Kakaguri. Meanwhile, a trade on the bottom lane as the Unleashed Power meets Radiator Springs. No, that was actually Lin K going down, I believe, on that river side. So, but Boom happy to claim that kill, and another 2-1 in favor of HoneyBee Esports.
Yeah, and they wanted to engage that there for HoneyBee, but just another 5 versus 4 there for them, and they very easily lose that. And they're gonna lose more off of this with that Rift Herald taking that top tower, looking to get another charge down, and a gold lead, it's only gonna grow.
Yeah, it's not that much. However, again, breaking the base is a huge thing for them. They're very happy with the current scenario, and I mean, that collapse was so good coming out from the entirety of the squad. You saw the ultimate from Gypsy Kid, you saw the teleport preemptively come out of the boom as well, which actually had caught Lin K vastly unawares.
Yeah, because Link was actually separated from his team there a little bit after they went in, so he didn't exactly have the Chrono Shift to save him there from the Unleashed power.
Yeah, no help to keep himself alive, as it is now 12-7, reaching just past the 22-minute mark. And Forge Dragon coming up in just a minute means HoneyBee Esports possibly might be only a few minutes away from securing this second game for themselves.
And then, of course, going to the game 3, and there is going to be a lot on the line in game number, because obviously you're going to move on to the next part of playoffs, but also there's going to be so much from this game that's going to play. Oh, there's the engage.
Yeah, that's a big engage, but the Satan United is stronger. The Baboom gets so much health back. That's going to be the Unleashed power going off, and Radiator Spring's not even able to drop the Chrono Shift. That's going to be the last chapter as Lin K hops over the wall, tries to help out his team, but that's going to lead him and his support into trouble as the Showstopper smashes down on the kitty, as Axel is the last one standing, but not anymore, as the Pirate Captain falls down.
And that's a 4-for-1 in the favor of HoneyBee Sports here, and the Chrono Shift wasn't even used that fight by Radiator Springs, like you mentioned. That was so huge, but I feel like even if they had popped that, that fight would have gone very south either way, and it looks like we're just going to see a very early 23-minute Baron picked up here for HoneyBee Esports.
Yeah, they have been so dominant this game around. They have been in control with the Shen teleports, with that, you know, roaming potential, and honestly, with their early game pressure. I mean, we watched Baboom really stick to that mid lane and just hold his own. As they are able to get a little consolation prize, HoneyBee are able to claim that dragon, so stifling a soul and giving themselves possibly a little bit of reprieve here.
Yeah, because had they not gotten that, they would have had to deal with both a Cloud Soul, but also the Baron buff being up at the same time here for HoneyBee Esports, and that would have been so much to deal with. It that at least give them a little bit of breathing room until that next Cloud Dragon comes up. Granted, they're gonna have to contest that one too, because it is still Elder Point here for the side of HoneyBee Esports.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, now they get their pick of the litter. They have, they still have the secondary towers in all the lanes. However, all of them are sitting pretty low in health, except for the bottom lane. So really, they could easily split, just force down the lanes. We see Jimk and Tor sitting off on the side clearing wards. So, you know, this team is very happy to just slowly pressure in onto the base.
Yeah, and I mean, there's not much HoneyBee can do here to deal with it right now, because there's just so much damage coming out, and you only have one Chrono Shift. We see how fast Kakegurui is melting in these teamfights whenever he hops in on the Jarvan, even with the Gargoyle Stone Plate and the full tank build, as that is going to be another inner tower destroyed here for HoneyBee Esports.
That's gonna be it. As the towers do fall, now 5 towers to 1. A 5.3k lead means they are very happy to sit, wait for the pressure to come out. We do see multiple items being completed. I think that's 2.5 items pretty much for everyone on the side of HoneyBee Esports. Meanwhile, we only see 1 to 2 be completed on the side of HoneyBee, and it's just not enough so far. I mean, what can HoneyBee do to really try and bring this game back under their favor?
I don't know, because it's just so hard for them. Because Kakegurui goes in, he instantly dies, and then the backline kind of instantly melts to the combined force of the Showstopper and just Baboom's damage. But we'll have to see, because if they are able to stall it out and pick up more of these Earth Dragons, there might be a little bit of hope, but it definitely looks very grim right now.
Yeah, looking extremely grim is the right term to use for it. Double bombs not landing at all, so Radiator Springs not able to set up any type of advantage right there. However, they are fortunate so far. None of the inhibitor towers have fallen just yet. So the wave clear is still holding steady for the side of HoneyBee.
Yeah, and what's the most important part here is that they haven't lost any inhibitor turrets quite yet, but I might have spoke too soon as we're starting to see a full wave hop on there and just all these autos wailing away, and we might see a fight happen right here with that tower no longer in the way. But looks like HoneyBee Esports is just going to back off for now, happy to just break on the base, but not necessarily get that inhibitor, and feel happy that they've managed to accumulate this 7,000 gold lead for themselves.
Yeah, I really think that, you know, only losing... They lost all the outer towers, which, I mean, is understandable when it's too hard to contest those. However, only losing one of your inhibitor towers to a Baron push, I think you'll be very happy about that, right? There were chances for them to die, but good patience and control means that they live to fight another day. They don't lose one of their inhibitors, so they're not pressured for any of the upcoming objectives too much. So, able to stall out a Baron to only losing one inhibitor tower, I think, is a very, very small win for HoneyBee.
Yeah, but we are going to have that Cloud Dragon coming up here under 1 minute and 10 seconds, and that's going to be a very huge contest point here, and that might just be a very crucial team fight for this game if we do see it break out, because I don't think HoneyBee really wants to give that one up for free.
Yeah, I don't think they want to either, because that is such a dangerous game to be playing right there. You know, again, having the extra move speed would mean so much for the set who, you know, his whole negative or disadvantage is he can't get into team fights. Well, add into the fact that he's going to have 20% CDR on his ultimate. Take the fact that he gets tripled extra movement speed outside of combat. He will be flying around the rift faster than you can say, oh no.
Yeah, he's just gonna be running at you. He's gonna press a Q, and he's just gonna be like, "I'm coming for you." You're not on this.
You will, and that is such a danger to have happen. They are positioned around it, and honestly, it looks like they're just gonna have to give it up. Unfortunately, the soul will be going over to HoneyBee Esports, who rightly deserve it after the immaculate early game that they have granted themselves after such a disastrous invade.
Yeah. And that's just going to help further their lead in this game even more with some more invisible stats. And the rotation power now coming out for them is going to be massive with that enhanced move speed. And it's going to be very hard for HoneyBee to keep up. Sure, you do have the zoomies coming out from I Enjoy Losing, and also the time winders coming out from Radiator Springs to help hasten the movement. But those are on cooldowns, whereas it's just a constant out-of-combat move speed boost for the side of HoneyBee. Jim Cantor has to be a little careful, finds himself an enemy Jarvan, but able to just kind of prowl on out of that.
Yep, not too worried, but again, Baron coming up now. This could be the point that they want as the fight over vision continues, and Axel playing the waiting game.
Yeah.
But he has found now drops the orange, but that's going to be the unleashed power just destroying Axel where he stands. That's going to be the cataclysm going in, but it's too little too late as the jungler tries to run away, but the last little arrow from Danny Q-Body is going to catch it. That's going to be a taunt catch as well from Blinn as the arcane shift flashes his way to safety. Out goes the Chrono shift. They are able to stave off a complete ace, but still 2 members down grants a very free Baron.
Yeah, and that was such aggressive positioning from Axel there. Sure, he was on the control ward, but Baboom with a very smart orb there to spot him out, and just so much damage coming from the Syndra. Able to burst him through the Orange's heal and the Yuumi heal. And that's going to be just a free second Baron picked up here for HoneyBee Esports, and that's probably just going to be the game, honestly, once they back here, purchase their items, and prep for the final push to get this top inhib or any inhib they want eventually.
And this is the kind of action you would want to see out of teams vying for the championship. They're going at it tooth and nail. Teams not giving up at all. So both these squads putting in some work right now with trying to push their way into a series win. And HoneyBee Esports, again, looking so dominant, getting the Baron now, getting the 4th Dragon, so getting the Soul, and if need be, have perfect control over the Elder Dragon.
Yeah, because if you watched the last game, probably go into this game thinking like, oh yeah, HoneyBee. They had HoneyBee Esports' number last game. They just kind of had them at every curve, and they're able to just kind of outwit and outplay them everywhere. But quite the opposite story this game, and it looks like HoneyBee Esports has really honed in on what got them the W last game.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to what occurred in the early game, right? Yes, they lost 3 kills to Lin. However, Lin needed a bit more time to scale up. He actually went for the fully completed Man Immune. So it was the fact that even though he got 3 kills, he wasn't able to really utilize it. All he got was an extra longsword, so that's not exactly what you want to have happen. So again, little things here and there granted the early game over to the side of HoneyBee Esports, and they're now bearing down on every single lane.
Yeah, and there's nothing you can really do on the side of HoneyBee right now. That's going to be the top lane inhib falling. Bombs are going to try and stop it, but nothing much. Kakiguri, is he going to go in? No, opts not to. It'd be a very hard fight because he'd be all on his own and instantly die.
Yeah, again, only having the Gargoyle's Stone Plate, still working on the other item. He does have a Titan's Resolve, Elixir of Iron, very sorry. Titan's Resolve, I believe, is from Teamfight Tactics, so completely different game, ladies and gentlemen.
Like the name for
Yeah. Here we go,
way,
though. Fight a little in the mid lane as Kakiguri does get rooted up and jumped on. He does drop the Cataclysm, but it's a little bit too little as the rest of the team has to fight off a very, very large Jimkin inventory. In goes the Stand United. Taunt goes out, misses on everyone. However, the Chrono Shift is down. He does try and flash away, but the piercing arrows are there. And then a cute body is able to clean it up. Heal comes out from him. Nope, that is going to be the QSS with Crucible, as they are going to power through this mid lane, say thank you very much. You have no power here. This is our base now. And HoneyBee Esports bringing it back from a disastrous game number 1 and a disastrous early game to game number 2. They're able to slam down the hammer, bring out a win, and we're going to a game number 3.
Yeah, and for the first game of the playoffs, this is pretty damn exciting, and I hope all the other games are like this, because that was so back and forth between the 2 games in terms of just who was in control. And honestly, the third game is going to be a bit of a mystery going into it.
Yeah, drastically different compositions, and like you stated, you know, Axel not on the kill, on something that can farm as well, but just not have as much impact. And again, it seems like they drafted a little bit of a weak early game on the bottom side of the map. You know, Lin on the Ezreal, yes, it's good, but doesn't have a whole lot of oomph coming out of it. And Radiator Springs on that mid lane, not on the Akali this time around. Going on that Zillion, so having to play a little bit more passive, just not having the best game. And again, we have to give credit to that Shen play. He was all over the place.
Yeah, even though he was getting battered around in lane a lot from Axel, just constantly eating up those barrels and those grass procs from the parlay, just able to tough it out. And whenever there was a team fight, he would instantly be able to go in with that Stand United, and Axel couldn't really do squat about it except for drop the Cannon Barrage and maybe get some damage onto Jupsikid as he went in.
Yeah, that is going to be game number 2 in the books, with both these teams claiming a game for themselves. This last game, though, will be the final clash between these sisters teams. At the end of this game 3, one team will be going on to the quarterfinals of the UCL, and one team will be going home. Stick around, find out which team that is as we come back for game number 3 on the night, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to game number 3 between HoneyBee Esports and HoneyBee. These two sister teams are going at it like cats and dogs. Game number 1, we saw HoneyBee take it in commanding fashion. Game number 2, in similar commanding fashion, HoneyBee Esports taking that win. So this game, really big toss-up depending on how the draft goes.
Yeah, because it can honestly go either way, and we're probably going to see some of the power picks from that last game taken off the table from HoneyBee Esports. So that might open up some rather potent picks that might not have been available earlier in the series.
Yeah, it definitely will. And I mean, we had a big, issue with the fact that, one of the things is the Ezreal. Yes, he got 3 kills, but he opted for the scaling start, right? Which doesn't seem very optimal in that situation.
Yeah, because he kind of really wanted a hammer. Sure, if you wanted to be cocky and potentially just go, hey, I can even get the tier first and still outdo you. Because technically speaking, the lead was so large, he could have gone for that immediate first back and just gone to lane with the Doran's Blade and tier level 1, but didn't end up doing that because the minions were there. But we are right now in that pick and ban phase, and immediately off the table, series favorites, bans Olaf and Zoe.
Yep. So again, pretty nice variety here. Once again, banning away the set. So HoneyBee say, okay, we aren't dealing with that once again. Olaf, though, taken off the table. Zoe and Zach banned away as well. So now we get underway. Do they wish to ban away certain champions? On the other side, J4 this time being banned away, so we won't see Kakagiri on that champion. This question, though, HoneyBee Esports now had to decide, do we want to ban away the kill or leave it open?
That is going to be a very hard question because there are some other picks they've been wanting to take off the table all series. We've seen the Misfortune banned every game, not to mention the Pantheon. So we'll have to see if those are able to slip through. But it's actually going to be the Gragas, so we might be seeing a little bit of an ultimatum here in terms of the pick and ban, saying, hey, you can have one of the two, and we are going to get the other one.
Yep, Misfortune being picked up. Again, a very nice combination setup. Aphelios, though, it's pretty surprising that Aphelios hasn't been picked up by either of these squads. So, one of the premier picks in the current meta. Instead, opting for the Misfortune, and we'll have to see what they answer with here. Getting down to the last few seconds, it is going to be the Varus once again. So this is the 3rd game in a row, I believe Danny Cutebody will be running that ADC.
Yeah, and we've seen both the lethality and the on-hit Varus in previous games, so he can go either way with this, honestly, and it'll depend on the needs of his team comp or what he just wants to do in lane. But we'll have to see if they're going to round that off with another support pick. No, it's actually going to be the Trundle.
Trundle, big one coming out here. Very big change up, and usually you only bring the Trundle out in the jungle role, at least, if it is against an already tanky jungler. This also does push away this as Juani pickup, right? You're not really going to want to play that into a Trundle of all things. However, if that's a Trundle support, that would be a completely different story.
But it's gonna be a Lee Sin actually for HoneyBee here, and we know that they tend to like some playmaking junglers for themselves. And Lee Sin, definitely a playmaking jungler.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see that happen. And as well as the Leona possibly being covered a premier matchup, Misfortune and Leona, one of the OP combinations. You CC someone for about 6 seconds, and that's enough time for a bullet time to crush you.
Yeah, you drop the Make It Rain, and that makes it very hard for them to dodge the Solar Blade coming out from Leona, or the Zenith Blade coming out from the Leona, and then that just leads into that massive CC chain, like you said. Plus, also the bullet time will continuously proc the Sunlight passive coming out from the Leona, so very potent combination here, but it is going to depend on what HoneyBee Esports picks up as their support here, because you can counter that Leona if you pick up the say of like Rush, for example, just able to flare out of every combo, but that is something we'll have to see as that Syndra is locked in and we move on to that second ban phase.
Yep, they left it available. They opted to pick up a little bit more stable bottom lane this time around, a little bit more aggressive, which I definitely like to see, not picking up the Ezreal Yuumi. However, that does take away the kill, one of their big carries in game number 1. So Braum banned away. They assume that that would be coming out, which honestly, it is a big counter to the Leona Misfortune. So they don't want to give that one up. And we'll have to see what HoneyBee Esports decide to go and ban. It is going to be the Vladimir and an immediate Tom Kench hover ban. That is going to be it. So Varus having nowhere to run now.
Yeah, and we're probably going to see the support picked up here to save the mystery of that top laner here for HoneyBee Esports and just let them get that counter pick on in unless there's a certain OP pick they want to lock in, but I don't think that'll be the case here as the timer is starting to run down and they sure are taking their time to think in this game 3 since there is quite a lot on the line.
There really is. Again, one team will be moving on to finish, to continue the run in the playoffs. The other team will be knocked out completely, and that is not a situation that you want to be in, right? You work so hard for the entire season, you just don't want to go home now. Your run is just starting, so locking in that Maokai, that solid tree in the top lane, work your way from the base up. And that's going to be a great front line for HoneyBee Esports in the coming, what it looks to be a very front-to-back composition.
Yeah, and quite front to back indeed, but the Victor locked in the mid lane, and that's going to be bringing a lot more damage here with the Chaos Storm, with the Death Rays, and that is going to really add up to a ton of burst coming out here from HoneyBee's side.
Yeah, and again, against the Syndra too, this is one of the matchups where it kind of swings either way. Syndra tends to not have the greatest time unless she can consistently land combos. So Victor might have an easy farm lane, and this time as well, not on something like the Zillion, something with a little bit more push potential in that matchup, as well as damage output. HoneyBee also pick up the Shen. So this time it'll be HoneyBee hoping to have beautiful stand united fights.
Yeah, although that does mean the top lane is going to be the classic tank versus tank matchup of where they just kind of smack around each other a lot and not do a lot. But the Taric actually going to be here. The support lock-in for HoneyBee Esports. That's definitely a very interesting pick. But the armor, not to mention the ultimate, can matter so much against the Misfortune Leona burst combo.
Not only that, I mean, if you want to stop damage coming through, become invulnerable for 2.5 seconds. Why not? You know, coming out with the Taric pick, gonna be very fun to see both supports having that stun potential. And I'm very excited to see what they can pull off here. Again, kind of a sleeper pick, definitely not something we were expecting.
Yeah, I mean, because the only time in recent memory we've really Taric picked in pro play has basically been for funnel strats. And Riot has had a history of nerfing those to the ground since not exactly the most enjoyable thing for spectators.
Yeah, you ever wanted to watch a Lulu sit in the mid lane and just pray for the jungler to come by? That's all it was.
Yeah. But with that being said, we are getting into the real champ select here, so we'll sort out any mystery picks, although we do have a fairly solid idea of where everything is going. The only potential mix-ups could be a Maokai jungle with a Trundle top. That would be very interesting into Shen, since, I mean, Trundle does, of course, shred through tanks and is able to split push so well into them. But most likely going to be the Maokai top, and it is going to be the Maokai top for a Gypsy Kid.
Yeah, going to be very happy about laning that one up. Again, Kakaguri, though, on the Lee Sin, going to be very interesting to see if he can still make the same kind of impact that he had in game number 1. I want to draw your attention, though, to this bottom lane. This is, I think, pretty much the first time that we've had a pretty, aggressive bot lane versus an aggressive bot lane. Which side do you think is really going to have priority in this bottom lane?
It is going to depend on the early levels, who's able to get the early control in lane, early priority, early dominant, tempo control. So definitely keep an eye out for levels 1 through 3 of who gets the control. But once we get on later on in the laning phase, keep in mind the Leona all-in, that is very instantaneous, whereas the Taric all-in with that Dazzling Gleam is very telegraphed, since you do have that whole long wind-up where you can see it, and then of course it is that tiny skill shot that you can easily flash out of. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Not to mention it, the Cosmic Radiance ultimate from Taric, it does have that charge time, so there is a very real situation here where the Varus, he just dies before that finally comes into play.
That would be so sad to see. And you saw Lane K dancing a little bit, having some fun, just flashing off the Taric there, saying, all right, we're not actually going to pick it. But I do understand, that concern is very much there. That's why we saw the bans of the Braum and the Tahm Kench. Those are immediate solutions to getting Varus out of trouble, right? That's very immediate, all right, emergency ambulance is here. Taric is more of the, okay, if we can predict it, we can stop it. But the immediate protection, definitely not there. So I do want to get your opinion now. Looking at this game number 3, we were talking about it. We're not sure which side is really going to be able to come out on top with these compositions. I mean, do you think HoneyBee B have a chance to really force an early game, or do you think HoneyBee Esports are going to be able to get the mini reverse sweep?
They definitely can force the early game here with the and Lee Sin pickups. So definitely look for early game shenanigans and also powerful roams coming out from I Enjoy Losing, because you can go into that mid lane very easily and just CC lock Baboom Syndra if he does not take that cleanse in this matchup. And he may have to, considering there is a Leona and Shen that he does not want to be dealing with.
Yeah, that is a very big fear for either of these sides. However, we will be going into the very short commercial break just to make sure to continue with competitive integrity. However, before we do, I do want to talk about one of our fantastic sponsors, Kono. If you are looking to take your game to the next level, it all starts with your peripherals. From keyboards to keycaps, mice, and more, our friends at Kono have got you covered. Kono works with some of the world's best designers, inventors, and makers to bring you some of the best gaming peripherals around. Kono have been huge supporters of us here at Upsurge and have made generous contributions to our prize pools. If you need to find a new keyboard, check out the Hexgears X1 RGB low profile Bluetooth mechanical keyboard. You can use discount code UpsurgeGG for 7% off your first order. For more information, head over to Kono.store to check out all they have to offer. Now, with that, we will be going to a short break, so please don't go anywhere. We will be right back with the conclusion between this in-house fight between HoneyBee Esports and HoneyBee B. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the final game of this amazing series so far between HoneyBee Esports and HoneyBee. Both these teams having played so well in both games with some hiccups along the way. However, this is the make or break time for these squads as we do get underway with HoneyBee on that blue side and HoneyBee Esports on the red side.
Yeah, and for once, HoneyBee Esports is not trying anything level 1, because in the previous 2 games, they tried and failed as they were caught out both times. And I mean, last game they even tried again, but we all know what happened. They're a triple kill for Link level 1. Bit of a yikes, but they were able to come back from it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what do you do? And that is like the epitome of why you never give up, right? Just because you lose 3 kills at the beginning of the game does not mean you will lose the game outright. So it's just like a beautiful situation for them. So, you know, definitely playing a little bit safer this time. However, it will be up to HoneyBee to start getting their own advantages, especially with Kakaguri on the Lee Sin, a little bit more aggressive, but definitely a lot less tanky.
Yeah, but when you have a Shen in the top lane who can just easily give you that stand united whenever you fly in with the resonating strike, it is going to help a ton, even if you aren't the most tanky of champions. But it is going to matter a lot, and we're going to have to see how he paths in this early game, because Lee Sin, he has to get that early tempo in and try and get some early game snowballing.
Yeah, definitely hoping for some solid, you know, early roam potential, early gank potential, and really start hammering in some help along these lanes. Where do you think he's really going to be looking towards first? I mean, you know, all lanes really have that CC ability. Do you think any lane he's going to prefer over the other?
I would assume bot, because that just has the most damage right now, especially with the CC lockup potential coming out from I Enjoy Losing, and that ignite is going to be pretty massive. Mid lane, it's definitely workable, but Radiator Springs, he does tend to need a little bit of time to scale on the Victor, because he really needs to upgrade that Hex core to really get into that game, just so he has all those upgraded abilities, but not to mention just all those extra stats.
Ooh, Jupsa Kid almost going down. So already Axel asserting a little bit of dominance here on this Shen. So far, the Shen has played an immense role in getting both these guys a win, or at least on the side of HoneyBee Esports. So hoping to have the next, but here we go. Low gank on the bot side as we do see Jim Cantor getting stunned up as a flash comes out of Link, and that's going to be it as Jupsa Kid trying to flash away. That's going to be the resonating strike being landed, and Kakaguri comes out with a very simple solo kill.
Yeah, and Tower was not enough to save Jupsa Kid there. He was that low on health. Thankfully for him, Axel did not get an assist from that gank, so no bonus extra kill gold there, just gonna be a little bit of extra CS and experience. Still though, we're talking about how Kakaguri, he needs to make the early game happen on this Lee Sin, and that's definitely one way to start making it happen.
Oh, absolutely. Tower diving, getting away without even burning the flash has to feel like a great win. You know, feeling pretty healthy about that one. Unfortunately, Axel didn't even get an assist. So, you know, kind of unfortunate there, but still. Big kill goal going over to Kakaguri to start getting a little extra in that jungle role.
Yeah, and not to mention, they didn't have to blow any summoners either, compared to Jupsa Kid, who did blow the flash and teleport on the Maokai, so that is going to be a double teleport advantage for now on the side of HoneyBee, thanks to Stand United once we do hit that level 6 for Axel. Either way, though, we'll have to see what happens here, as we might see a bit of a scuffle in the jungle between Jim Cantor and Kakaguri. They are going to meet pretty shortly. We'll have to see if they have anything to say about it.
Yeah, flash out. Kakaguri does not get away all the way, but that is going to be his teammate Axel coming to the rescue as he safeguards to safety. Meanwhile, mid lane, though, big CS differential coming out in favor of Baboom, who, even in game number 1, was a big force to be reckoned with. Or game number 2, very sorry about that.
Yeah, and still showing a lot of dominance on the Syndra, even into the Victor, who's able to do a lot more than the Zillion, but hasn't translated to a kill or any plates quite yet. So we will have to see if that was just a little bit of early game misfortune for Radiator Springs, or if Baboon is really coming out on all cylinders with this Syndra.
Yeah, keep in mind, Baboom did go for the teleport Meanwhile, Radiator Springs did go for the cleanse, so getting ready and making sure that he is going to stay safe instead of, in case he gets hit by the Scout of the Week or the Pillar Slow or the Target Stun. So keeping himself alive, we'll have to see if he's able to utilize that Summoner spell as much as he would want.
Thankfully, it does have a fairly low cooldown for a Summoner spell, but Jim Cantor, he might be eyeing up the Dragon. Nope, looks like he's just eyeing up this bot lane instead, as I Enjoy Losing and Link, they are starting to push up just a little bit, and this troll hasn't been spotted quite yet. We'll have to see, because there is no Chain of Corruption available quite yet for Danny Cutebody, so it's going to be primarily up to Krista Lenz to land that. But I Enjoy Losing.
Yeah, I Enjoy actually went to try and drop a ward. I don't think he actually has a ward available, so he walked up and said, oh no, and had to burn the flash for it. However, they didn't lose their lives, so for all the pressure going down, I do like this staying alive situation. As honestly, they're staggering their flashes, so it's not going to be that at any point they're going to, not have flash at all in that bottom lane.
Yeah, not to mention, very crucial is that the Pillar of Ice from Jim Cantor actually knocked I Enjoy Losing out of the Dazzling Ruling stun there. Had that landed the stun, they would have been able to combo that with the Pillar and then potentially get a kill onto I Enjoy Losing. Granted, Leona's still very tanky, especially if that Aftershock procs, but still in the end, not getting that kill, and that's going to be another early dragon picked up here. Going to be an Earth Dragon for HoneyBeeB.
Yeah, Earth Dragon going down, giving that extra MR and armor. Definitely going to help out on the side of Leona, Shen, and Lee Sin. Now keep in mind that Infernal Drake coming up in 4 minutes 35 seconds, and you get the best of both worlds if you're able to pick it up by HoneyBeeB.
Yeah, but it does also mean we aren't going to see that Infernal Soul, so we're going to have a repeat of either the Cloud Soul or Ocean Soul again this game.
Gonna be a repeat, but I mean both those souls are pretty nice to have. Again, the infinite regen coming off the Ocean Soul and the CDR and movement speed would help either team. So, not a bad situation to have either of those souls pop up.
Still though, that is a thing for the future to keep in mind, as right now it's just all about this laning phase and trying to inch out a bit of lead. As Jim Cantor, he is hovering nearby this bot lane, clearing out that ward, and if he wants to, he could try and come in since there is no ward again and still no flash on I Enjoy Losing, but instead just going to opt to walk away.
But we do see Kakaguri down here as well, so that could be a dangerous situation if they allow it to occur, but he doesn't have his ultimate just yet. So that's a big problem. He's waiting for level 6, but no, they're going to back off, so Danny Cutebody and Krista Lenz say, okay, we push it in, we have the farm. 81 CS Danny Cutebody's name, so very happy to go back to buy.
And keep in mind, Danny Cutebody and Krista Lenz, they were both level 6, and I Enjoy Losing and Link, they were not level 6 at that point, and there is a potential that Kakaguri actually leached a bit too much EXP from them. I'm not entirely sure, it would have been very narrow, but either way, had they gone in on that, they would have had to deal with both the Chain of Corruption and the Cosmic Radiance coming down, and that could have been very, very hard to do.
Yes, it definitely can, and such a terrifying process, but taking stock of the entire map right now, honestly, it's kind of weird to see just because of that the CS differential there and the first blood difference, but again, only about 500 gold in the lead. HoneyBeeB, not really utilizing their first blood as efficiently as one would expect.
Yeah, and the bot lane for HoneyBee Esports rotating up to try and get this very early Rift Herald and potentially drop that in the top lane. That would be a very huge lead picked up for them if they get that.
Yep, and up goes the Rift Herald Eye. That's going to go to Jim Cantor, and the rotate coming out. Lane swap coming out, pretty standard all the way around. Yes, HoneyBee Esports were a little faster on the draw. However, we do see it match, so overall tempo shift, not too much.
Yeah, Kakaguri in the top lane, Resonating Strike, not going to hit anything in that push, sadly, as both the junglers, they haven't really had much luck outside of their first initial things in this game.
Yeah, they really haven't, and Radiator Springs actually goes pretty ham in that mid lane, dropping the Hex Storm and not really getting much out of it, so kind of a kind of surprisingly used the ult, which does mean Baboom might have a chance to retaliate later since he does have the teleport.
Yeah, I think that might have just been a hey, get off of me Chaos Storm coming out of Radiator Springs. They're just fearing the potential of that unleashed power coming out from Baboon, and ensuring he comes out on top of that trade will help him a lot. Means he can just push that out, back right here potentially, and restore his health and mana, and come back to lane with a bit more itemization as Axel, he's gonna eat up that stun, but able to get out with that taunt, luckily enough.
Yeah, pretty crazy to see this immediate lane swap once again, which is actually pretty standard. You know, you take your duo lane pretty much wherever a global objective is going to be. But the immediate swaps back and forth have been fantastic for HoneyBee Esports. They keep HoneyBee on their toes, you know, constantly keep them rotating. This is actually how you stifle them out, and they get the advantage. Dropping the Rift Herald on that bottom lane, they're going to get so many plates from this.
Yeah, essentially 2 for free and possibly even more, but look at the rotations coming out. We have Radiator Springs coming. We have Kakegurui coming. There's a Solar Flare. Jim Cantor, he has to be careful here.
Yeah, but the double teleport is larger. Chain of Corruption actually goes out. Kakegurui is able to stay alive, but that's going to be the double teleport. Axel in the back line. Kakegurui goes long, is going to pay with his life. He gets shut down as a Scatter of the Week catches Axel. He might go down. Stuns go out. Do miss. Unleash power, claiming the kill on I Enjoy. And that's going to be a 3 for 0 as a dog pile from HoneyBee Esports nets them 3, a potential dragon later, and a potential first tower.
Yeah, absolutely massive by them there. The game was dead even, but this is going to help them blow it up in their favor just a little. And Crystal Lens with the absolute monstrosity of a Cosmic Radiance that he had there, keeping his team alive through that bullet time. And Kakegurui just thirsting for that potential kill so hard it ended up costing him his life, honestly, Sin. And that is going to be, like you said, those 3 kills, that first tower, and this Infernal Dragon to tie up the buff counter.
Yeah, just, you know, again, it's a shield versus a sword. However, it's kind of on the flip-flop, you know? You would kind of hope for a Maokai and a Trundle to have, you know, maybe a little extra armor and magic resist in there. However, you know, both teams will absolutely take whatever they can get in that situation. As we do get into a very short pause here, we're going to talk about the state of the game so far, because we saw the early game a little bit of a skirmish heavy. However, HoneyBee Esports really coming back in commanding fashion.
Yeah, just thanks all to that one impeccable team fight from them. Thankfully, they're able to dodge the initial blow from that Solar Flare and just kite back and survive out to get to that Cosmic Radiance. Because had that not come down, the bullet time would have easily melted both Crystal Lens and Jim Cantor there.
Yeah, it really did, in such a fantastic way as well. We do have some technical difficulties, so we will get back with you here very shortly. So please bear with us, but, you know, state of the game so far, looking at it, HoneyBee, they seem to have a much better time. However, I want to point our, you know, our thoughts towards that mid lane. We do have a little bit of a scenario where Radiator Springs down about 30 CS. He's been down all game so far and farm.
Yeah, it's been very brutal for him, it appears, and just not able to deal with that Syndra lane pressure that Baboom has been putting out. And he even has the cleanse in this matchup and took those early Merc treads just for that extra chunk of MR and to get out of that Scatter of the Weak stun just a little bit faster, but still having a bit of a hard time. And now that Baboom is 2-0-1 on this Syndra and has those Sword Shoes for that extra 18 magic then, that is going to hurt a lot in this mid lane on Radiator Springs. And I don't think things are going to be getting all that much easier for him for a good foreseeable future.
And I mean, taking a look at it, does it seem like it's a good pickup? Or, I mean, it looks like he's also a little bit shaky on the champion. Do you think this was supposed to be a strong counter pick and he's just uncomfortable? Do you think this is his comfort and just not happening very well?
I think it's just the latter there, because I mean, I don't feel like the matchup should be this lopsided. Sure, Syndra can probably and should probably eke out a bit of a lead there and always has that throw of the burst, but I mean, with the shield on Victor, not to mention just all the mobility and the ability to at least trade back compared to the Zillion, like, I don't think it should be this lopsided, but this is sadly the current state of the game we are in here for Radiator Springs, and he's not going to be enjoying it all that much on this victor, especially with the loss of the flat magic pattern from the sword shoes. That's going to matter a lot when he's trying to burst down Danny, Cute Boy, and Baboon.
Yeah, it's always that question of how well is it going to work again, and it's just like, again, it seems the coordination from the side of HoneyBee Esports is just so much stronger. It's like the growth potential, right? We saw them in game number 1 look a little bit scattered, and then game number 2 they firmly ripped it back in. As we will go to if we can, a very quick break to make sure all the technical difficulties are well and true and get it figured out. So please bear with us. We will be right back after this pause. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the continuation of this matchup between these two sister teams. All right, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Very sorry about that. A little bit of technical difficulties again. We were just trying to make sure everything was set in stone, but we are getting right back into the game as we see another lane swap occur. So right back into the action, we're seeing top lane become the center of attention.
Yeah, as everybody is piling up around there, and something has to be brewing up here, because you don't commit that many people without pulling a trigger usually, but it looks like all the members of HoneyBee are just kind of chilling in that river brush, hoping for Link and I Enjoy Losing to push out a little too far. Still, though, quite the time investment, and they've been up there for quite some time, it would appear.
Yeah, I mean, that's because the Rift Herald is coming up. They're hoping to try and bait it out a little bit. So definitely trying to play the long game here and hoping to make it work. But again, very slow and methodical, it feels like, coming out of this HoneyBee Esports squad.
Yeah, and they have all 5 members present for this Rift Herald. Should be very easy for them to grab, as no one from HoneyBee is really sniffing around in the area to try and contest, it would seem. And that's going to be the second Rift Herald of the game, also going to HoneyBee Esports. And we saw what they're able to do with the first one, getting that first tower and all that plate gold off the back of that one team fight win. So probably won't have as explosive of a second Rift Herald due to tower plates and first tower not being available anymore. But if the last one's any measure to go off of, it should be a pretty good Rift Herald.
Yeah, that is the hope here. Again, this has kind of been the MO, it feels like. You know, HoneyBee Esports putting down their foot on the gas pedal, pushing the tempo, and then HoneyBee just trying to react, and it seems they're so slow on those rotates, you know? And now looking back at game number 1, it seems like most of their wins came from the fact that HoneyBee Esports were being proactive, trying to make plays, and just the tempo didn't go their way.
Yeah, not to mention like the compositional difference in game number 1 with that Kale ultimate was so clutch for team fights, and just not being able to finish off those members was very critical in many team fights. But with that out of the picture, a lot easier to kill people, it turns out. But a lot of members stacking up for both teams in this mid lane. Actually, there's a cloud. Oh, there it is.
Oh my lord, the Wombo combo does miss, but they throw everything in. Axel now caught behind enemy lines, unfortunately. He has to run his little butt out of there. He is going to go try and hide. I think he might actually try and ult someone if he can get out, or he might just recall. Looks like he is going to recall. The rest of the team has said it's not important, as a dragon is coming up, so that is going to be the main focus here, as the rest of the squad is going to push up mid.
Yeah, there's actually going to be no contest here, but keep in mind, every ultimate is up except for the Cosmic Radiance, except for the Varus ultimate and 3 ultimates on the side of HoneyBeesports. Or HoneyBee.
It's no worries, but I do want to say I have a very big criticism of this squad of HoneyBee right now. A big issue that I'm kind of seeing is the fact that they are not trying to be proactive as much, but here we go. They are going to try and prove me wrong as they go all the way in. Cosmic Radiance not going down, but that's going to be the stun and slow. But the Roots have gone out and found their prey. That's from the backline. A very nice stun as the tower falls. Axel is going to fall as well. 2-0 so far. Make it 3 as the stun comes out, but not before Baboom picks up the kill.
Yeah, and HoneyBee, they try and make a proactive play there, but it falls so flat on its head. I Enjoy Losing is going to be next up on the menu here. Pops the stop block.
Yeah, not gonna matter though, but boom with the scout of the week, laying down that hammer, and that is going to be the mid tower being broken. And this is a squad that looks composed, well organized, and raring to go. Much better than in game number 1. This is game number 2, HoneyBee Esports.
Yeah. 7 kills up, and they get a pre-20-minute inhibitor with that one singular Rift Herald. I was just like, hey, they're probably not going to get as much value, but they're actually able to go through 3 towers in one push with it. So I would say they managed to even outdo their last Rift Herald push with that.
Yeah, they really have, and I mean, breaking open the base at 19 minutes in, and going back to kind of what I was saying, I didn't really get to touch on it too much, is the fact that HoneyBee are having trouble trying to find a window of opportunity. There are situations when you get into a best of 3 or best of 5 series, getting down to that last game where everything is on the line, and teams tend to fall into one of 3 kind of scenarios. Number 1 is they don't change their play style at all. They play the same. They don't worry about too much. Situation number 2 is they go over aggro, right? They're trying to force a play because they want to make that win happen, and they don't care what they do, and they kind of overcommit for things. Option number 3 is you become way too passive because you're too scared of making a play happen, and you don't want to be that one player that makes that critical error in the game, right? And it seems like HoneyBee are falling into that category number 3.
Yeah, because things have just not been going their way this game. They got that very strong first blood, but it seems like the trend this series is whoever gets first blood loses first Nexus, and that might just be the trend this game as well, because this is the most dominant lead we've seen all series. 6k gold lead at 20.5 minutes in, that's a very strong. 4-0 in towers, you have a dragon up on them, and of course the 7-1 in kills, and CS leads in basically every lane except that top lane. But it might extend even further as everybody is kind of clumping up towards this top side, setting up a little bit for that Baron. Link, you have to be careful here that you don't get hit by that pillar.
Yeah, very calm now that it's all kind of blown over. However, a little fight on the bottom lane means Axel takes most of the brunt, as Jupsa at this point is too tanky to care. Again, that dragon that they picked up was the Cloud Drake, so that is going to be Cloud's soul on the table, plus an extra 20% CR on top of the 10 that they already have for the ultimates. So again, HoneyBee Esports are feeling so happy right now. Looking down the scoreline and itemization, we see 2 towers completed for multiple members on the side of, or actually just for Baboom, sorry. He's the only one sitting with 2 items with Ludens plus the Morel and Omicron. So again, very happy about the current standings for themselves.
Yeah, and honestly, it's kind of entering the point where it's kind of their game to lose, and the only real way they lose this game is if they somehow like give up a Baron for free and then manage to give up two cloud buffs ish for free and deny themselves that soul, because this is such a commanding lead for them right now with the gold lead and the objective lead they've secured.
And looking at it, I do want to get your opinion because, you know, we saw in game number 2 that we saw HoneyBee try to make some moves. But here, what can they do to really bring it back in their favor? Is, like, if you had to do something, what would be the optimal scenario for them to be able to get back in this game, bar critical mistakes and just walking to the NA team from HoneyBee Esports?
Well, obviously, when you have that Shen, you are able to make a lot of cross-map plays and just kind of use teleport timings. So you could look to do that with Axel. There is, of course, always the beautiful sit in a bush and pick off someone, because getting the right shutdown on the right member can make a game come back for you, or at least help even it out quite a bit more. But those are kind of a little far-fetched in terms of possibilities right now with how well HoneyBee Esports is playing, as they are nabbing themselves that third dragon of the game, a second cloud dragon for themselves.
Yeah, and this is just about as controlled of a game as you can get, only giving over 1 kill, only giving over 1 dragon, and 0 towers taken away from them. This squad is looking to put a statement into this game number 3 and really show that they should be a huge contender moving into the rest of this UCL playoffs.
Yeah, because everyone for their side is kind of firing off of all cylinders right now, especially Baboom in the mid lane, who has 4 out of 7 of his team's kills. Granted, one thing we can say right now is that the game has slowed down a little. We haven't seen any major gold growth since we last mentioned the gold lead at about 20.5 minutes. So all that little bit of extra time with the gold lead staying the same, it is at least a bit of a silver lining for the side of HoneyBee, just giving a little bit of time to catch up. Granted, though, I mean, there haven't been any real major objectives, and right as I'm saying this, if you take a look at the mini-map Oracle, there's a bit of a sneaky Baron going on. Andre losing Radiator Springs and Kakaguri. Want to say something about it, but here comes the tree.
Yeah, they say here comes the big one, as the Roots don't claim anyone. Actually, a flash being burned by I so, you know, not able to finish it off. Baron wasn't finished, though, so the stall tactic, if you want to call it that, technically worked.
Yeah, but we might just see him go right back onto it. Never mind, the members are going to be recalling here, not wanting to do too much more with that. Getting a flash for an ultimate. It isn't a terrible trade, but like you said, it is stalling out the game a little bit more and giving a little bit more wiggle room to HoneyBee, who could use it. Granted, the gold lead is still very massively in the favor of HoneyBee Esports, so if there is a head-on 5 versus 5 fight, bar some like major miracle play coming out from HoneyBee, it should be a pretty commanding team fight win.
Yeah, it really should. Again, they're so far ahead. They're so happy to continue kind of this stalling out tactic. They're happy to just farm. You see the CS differences on your screen right now. Mid lane has caught up a little bit, and top lane also in favor of the Shen. Again, though, that is because it seems honestly that the side of HoneyBee Esports has been looking more for global contests and global vision control. So, you know, kind of foregoing the CS leads there.
Yeah, and it has been paying off so far in terms of objectives with a 5-0 in towers, not to mention the 2 dragon buff lead. So we'll have to see, though, because it has definitely been stalling out, and that is a huge worry point here, because you don't really want that Victor and Misfortune scaling up to the point where they can just absolutely decimate your back line.
You really don't. However, I don't think that time is going to be anytime soon, as we do see the Rabadons trying to be built for Radiator Springs. We also see the Infinity Edge still not being built by Link either. So, you know, these carries that we're talking about aren't even close to hitting the right itemization power spikes.
Yeah, because that's still a far amount.
Oh, we can't. Oh, it happened too fast where we couldn't even talk about it. That is so painful.
Yeah, because I saw it on the map as soon as you said, oh, I looked over and I'm like, yes, there seems to be 5 members dogpiling onto a single member. Hopefully, Directed Cam will take us over there. Nope. As Kakaguri being down definitely hinders the potential to contest this Baron.
That's such a strong showing from them. Again, the Baboom on this Syndra is something to be feared. This is, I think, the second or third time that he's done one of those sneaky scout of the week just chances, right? Just throwing it out there, seeing if he can get the stun off, and if it does, just all in on that champion. So very nice job on their part. Again, holding steady and potentially going for that third dragon coming up soon.
Yeah, because we were talking about how they've been kind of chilling on the pedal right now, chilling on the throttle, and haven't really made any significant gains aside from that one extra Cloud Dragon in the past several minutes. But with that one single pick, they're able to grab the Baron, and that is going to be very huge for this game, because keep in mind that mid inhibitor is still wide open, so they don't even need to try and push through the tower. They can just do a 1-4-0 or even just 5-man mid, since Kid does not have his teleport available, and just try and brute force that inhibitor.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about brute force, it literally is brute force. I don't think they even have to attempt to push the other lanes. They're just like, all right, I mean, we're going to get Dragon here, we're going to get the Soul, and we can win any way we so choose.
Yeah, and doesn't look like there's going to be too much contesting coming out here from HoneyBee. Kakaguru has been trying to back there right as the dragon was spawning, so clearly the plan is not to contest here. And even if he were to try, if you look at the minimap, there's those 3 members of HoneyBee Esports just kind of running around in his jungle saying, hey, Kakaguru, stay away from the Cloud Dragon. And he's like, yes, right away.
We are the security guards. You do not stop our team from getting this dragon. As we do see a 3-man squad on this bottom side with Tarek running the middleman between the mid and bot. Looks like Kid will be pushing that mid lane, trying to get that inhibitor. So a very standard 4-1 split push here for the side of HoneyBee Esports, and they're just going to get it for free as we see a jump in on that mid lane. Kid getting a little bit of a root down, and Radiator Spring just not putting out any damage. I think he laid down a full combo without getting anything. Not even a little bit of health as the Solar Flare does go down, but the stun is there as well. Kick back in, but the Cosmic Radiance keeps the entire team alive. Here comes Nature's Grass as he takes out the back line. That's going to be flash or flash as the stun goes out, but Link is going to pay with his life as he goes down to Baboom, who is now on a killing spree. That's going to be Kid keeping Radiator Springs alive. And in what was their last attempt, and the Scout of the Week shotgun comes out. Baboom getting that kill. 4-0. The base has been broken, and HoneyBee Esports assert their dominance and take the series in a mini reverse sweep 2-1.
Yeah, and 12-1 in this last game with that 12k gold lead to end it out, and absolutely dominating. It looked like HoneyBee had their number with that game number 1, but HoneyBee Esports proved to be pretty damn adaptable and were able to change up their game plan and then really bring out the pain in games number 2 and 3.
Yeah, it was such a dramatic shift, but again, looking back at game number 1, it really seemed like they really didn't diverge from their original playstyle. Game number 1, really, if you remember, all the kills that went over to Axel were on the back of Jim Cantori and either Kid or Baboom trying to force down Axel, and just a very nice counter gank came out each time. So it didn't seem like they changed anything. It's just they were able to find the kills that they needed.
Yeah, and eventually just kind of added up to a bit too much, because by the time we saw the end of the game there, we saw one last attempt coming out from HoneyBee, but they weren't even able to get a kill in that fight, and 12-1 was the scoreline in kills, which honestly isn't very high, but it kind of goes to show that HoneyBee Esports, they were playing much more of a tactical game with all their map rotations and just objective control throughout the series.
Yeah, it really was. And looking back on it, I mean, this team, even though they were playing sister teams, HoneyBee really put on a good showing in the game number 1 and, decent performances in game number 2 and 3. Do you think HoneyBee Esports are going to have such a fantastic run coming into the next couple matches that they have?
It is going to be a time will tell sort of thing, because there is a lot of information you can pick up from that series. Like Baboom on the Syndra was absolutely devastating, and there might just be the potential up for the rest of playoffs. He might just not get it.
That is a very real thought. These champions that they excelled on might be banned away. However, we will have to see as, again, HoneyBee Esports taking it over Honeybee B here in this sister matchup. So congratulations to Honeybee Esports. They take the win in 2-1, and we will have to see if they're able to make the continued run throughout the rest of their games going into the quarterfinals. Now, once again, thank you so much for tuning in here to the Upsurge Contenders League. My name is Orbital. I was joined here by Go for Eno. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and have a fantastic rest of your evening.